chat room.
Hi, everybody. We've got Tim and Mike and Neil Lanwarn. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Neil.
And do you guys recognize our special guest co-host this week?
Yeah, he's Locutus from the Borg.
There he is.
Yeah. Resistance is futile. Oh, do I have to add myself to the chat as well? Yes, or not?
No, not really. You don't have to.
No. So the way it works is that if you type, hang on, you're a guest, so type something in the chat.
Okay.
See what happens.
Okay. I do have to add my YouTube account to it.
Yeah, if you don't want to mess with it, you don't have to.
Oh, that.
It just can be distracting sometimes, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Vetland.
It's Eric from Norway.
Hello, Eric from Norway. We got a story about a Norwegian.
Have we?
Misbehaving, yeah.
No,
I think so.
Oh, yes, he was trying to sneak on airplanes.
I was going to say
it was a German. Succeeded.
I was going to say it was a German
Corey Cave.
But actually Norwegian.
Hi, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
Are you in Charlotte? Or are you on the road? Or where are you?
Hello, Neil Lanwarn. Is your land worn?
As you can see, Jeff is not in the road vessel today.
I've just done a big expansion here.
Yeah, he's got a big slide out.
He's found the button that makes the sides of his RV move out.
Oh!
He wanted to get a full-size piano, so he had to get a big slide out on the side. Yeah, Eric's saying it was not him, that bad Norwegian. It was not him.
Sure.
Oh, that's a shame.
Being a little too defensive, I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
He thinks that thou dost protest too much.
Too much. Protested
Indeed.
too much. You got your recorder on, Jeffrey?
I do.
Oh, very good.
He's got a whole piano. He doesn't need a recorder.
Grenada. Oh, very nice. Grenada. As long as there's no hurricanes, that's lovely. Buy some spices. Isn't Grenada the spice island?
Grenada is where I...
Yes, you were in combat there.
To rescue those poor medical students from the coup.
Exactly.
Attempt.
Yeah, I remember that story. I believe nutmeg and all those things are grown there. Mace and nutmeg and the spice island.
Mace, isn't that something you squirt in someone's eye?
No, mace is the
you
big.
Be careful when you're using it for cooking.
Nutmeg is the little nut inside mace.
Oh.
So what, you throw the mace at the perpetrator, do you?
Yes. I'll agree with you, Nick, because what else should I do? Home in Philly to start a 3-day tomorrow. Oh, I see.
Why is that?
It didn't work out with the code. I'm sorry, I cannot join the chat.
Oh, well, you can just read it. If you have anything important to say, just tell me and I'll type it.
Jeff, you haven't got the code yet from Stream.
No, never got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Did it say that it was going to send a code to that email address?
Yeah.
That's interesting because here, let me double check again and see if they ever sent it. But
you're not friends with them anymore, clearly, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, my friends at StreamYard have dumped
me. Let you down there.
Ghosted me. Yeah. The last thing I have is.
Shall I try it again? I mean, maybe.
No.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. You can, honestly, we very rarely actually, I mean, Liz does when we're doing the show, like types into the chat, but usually the hosts don't because we're busy yakking.
And I can put up on screen if they say something important, which doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't happen at all,
it's usually drivel, actually, but. I'm kidding. We love your comments in there, guys.
Your pithy, tell it like it is.
Comments. We love it. We love them.
All right. Are we almost ready to go? We're going to sort of start on
almost,
time?
but if you guys would just stop distracting me with stuff.
Oh, sure.
So what's going to happen tonight then?
Meaning
I
what?
don't know.
Well,
What do you
we
mean?
get a briefing on the show? I mean, does Stefan know what's going to happen?
Stefan and Jeff
No,
had
no,
a
it's
had a
better if he doesn't
pre-session last
understand
night.
what's gonna-
Oh, good. Okay, so he's fully briefed. Right.
Well.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Quite
God
right
willing.
too.
Yeah. No, I have the show notes as well, so I see how it works.
Is it?
If not, I can start talking German, and everybody's nodding, making signs.
I
and
can
saying,
do that.
That, yeah, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
fine.
meine
Well, Jeff and I'll go do
Luftkissen
something else.
Fahrzeuge
You
füllen
guys
mit
do a show
allem.
in German.
Ja, genau. Mein Hooverkraft. Ne? Ja, genau.
They're talking about us, Jeff. I can tell.
Eine kleine Schokolade.
I think they're saying those two are the most attractive human beings that we.
Yes, I'm
have
sure
ever
that's
seen.
what they're saying.
That was my translation.
Was it?
I typed it into
Yeah.
Google Translate, and that's what it said.
Good.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. Is there anything else that we wanted to? Okay, so you know how this goes, right, Steph? I introduce you, and then you say something like, "Jeff, you're the best, and your podcast is the best podcast in the universe." That kind of thing. You know, don't hold back.
Yeah.
I mean, just
lots of praise.
lots of praise. That's
Jeff
a
needs lots of
requirement.
praise.
Just kidding.
In English or Swahili?
Preferably
or-
English, yes.
Oh, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Good.
You got your countdown ready, Jeff?
Not yet, Liz.
Okay, Jeff.
Move it along, Jeff.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
I
Just
feel
ask
like I'm
anybody.
approaching an airport, but I haven't briefed anything yet.
Yeah, that's exactly
That's
the
pretty
way I
thrilling,
feel
isn't
every
it?
week.
That must be thrilling.
And that was what my student did with me today. I didn't let him pass. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
dear.
had, yeah.
Was he
no, not
upset?
pass. No. It was an assessment if he's ready for the check, but he isn't.
He's not.
Oh, okay.
Well, you might as well tell him now.
Live
Well, that's
on the
right.
stage.
No point wasting the examiner's time and giving
Yeah.
him a
Yeah.
False hope.
heartache.
Yeah.
Hello. Test. Check.
You're still there.
Yeah.
I know. I'm looking at the levels in my recording.
And we're not hearing
software.
much dog or construction noise, so
That's good.
pretty
I'm hearing
good.
it. Okay.
Jeff is in a construction zone with a dog nearby, so we were expecting to hear some.
Yeah, I think
Nice.
they've been. Jane has been doing a great job of keeping Piper quiet. Now, if we could only do the same here on the show.
Right.
That's never gonna
I'll
happen.
leave as soon as I possibly can.
No, don't leave, Liz. Come
Yap,
on, we're
yap,
just
yap,
kidding.
yap, yap.
Oh no, there's the yapping.
That Piper yapping.
Liz Piper.
My dog's sleeping, so
Okay.
can't blame her.
Well, I got that running, and let me just do one more thing there. I got that recording, and we've done our sound checks. Hopefully that they'll be okay. And then let's see, one more. From his home studio in Hamburg, Germany.
Sounds good.
Okay. You can't hear that?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
but it's not the
The-
least bit distracting.
Yeah. They must know that I'm about to do the introduction of the show. Well, you know what? It's just the way it's going to work, you know? We're just going to have to deal
Yep.
with it.
This is what Eric is telling you guys. Look. Good luck.
Veel
Is that good luck?
Veal, is that like veal cutlets?
Yep.
Wiener Schnitzel.
Veal Glück? What does that mean?
Viel Glück. Oh, good luck.
Veal Glück.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was good
Ah.
luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's about all I know.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Let me
Ready when
go
you
over
are.
here to brand, and let me go over here to the countdown clock. And I guess, well, good luck, everyone. It's going to be a mess, I think. Here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 628.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. With your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from the APG Road Vessel Studio. Today's show is recorded the week of August 19th.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Picture light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a fired worker crashes a Cessna into his former workplace, and a man without a ticket sneaks onto 2 Lufthansa flights in 2 days, once with a knife. Also hit more news, your feedback, and today's plane tale. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 628 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger Stern. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in
New York City.
Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a former U.S. Air Force pilot and retired captain for Delta Airlines. And joining us today from his studio,
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
professional photographer, former RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff, and hi to our very special guest. You know, if you were on Lufthansa 628 tonight, Flight 628, you'd be going from London to, where do you guess? Zanzibar.
Ooh, very exotic.
Zanzibar. Very cool.
567 UK pounds it would cost you.
Oh.
Is that right?
Mm.
Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Well, let's introduce our guest from his home studio in Hamburg, Germany. Retired blue and white A380, Boeing 737, A300, and A340 captain from Germany. It's Captain Stefan.
Hi everybody. I'm honored to be here. It is the greatest podcast on, was it the Earth or even universe? I'm not quite sure. And
Universe.
I'm very happy. Universe. Yeah, I'm trying to stick to the script you told me, and I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for letting me join you.
Hi, Stefan.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm going to turn off that wonderful music. And great to have you with us, Stefan. And also, of course, from her studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer, it's Liz Piper.
Hi, everybody. It's great to have Stefan here with us, who's also an A380 captain, which Jeff neglected to say. But
No, that was the first thing I said.
I think she did.
A380.
did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a
I
small.
We're
read
going
it.
to have to listen to it again now to see who's right.
Pull the tapes. Pull the tapes.
Yeah. Retired blue and white A380, Boeing 737, A300,
Okay.
and A340 captain.
I
for
guess I was
Airways.
just so mesmerized by your speech there, Jeff. I missed it.
Yeah, well, this is what I think about that. All right.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a good
Yeah,
show,
you know what?
guys.
Just for that, you're relegated to the back. There we go. She's gone.
Poor Liz.
Okay. You need to do something about those listening skills. Okay. Let's let's move on then with some aviation news. Okay.
Stand by for news.
I should say,
Great.
if you're watching the video, hopefully I'll be able to remove as much of this as possible. But I'm in a construction zone, and I'm in my choir director's lovely home with really, really great bandwidth. Unfortunately, they are doing some construction work above me in the master bathroom. So we're just going to have to deal with that. And also, I'm going to see if I can adjust the volume from Stefan.
I
So
made myself a little bit louder. Maybe it's better now.
okay, is that better,
You're
everyone?
getting there. Could be a little bit, just a little bit punchier.
I got it
if you
up as
can
far as it'll
punch
go
it up.
now.
How about
Okay,
now?
fine.
That's good.
That's good.
Okay,
That's,
okay.
Yep. Don't overdo it.
Yeah, and then take the muff just a slightly away from your lips because it's almost too close. There you go. Say something.
Hello. I should be actually used to having a mic
Oh.
in front of my face, huh?
I know,
That's
but
very
but
good,
it kind
Stefan.
of it sounds like what you would hear in aviation airplane communications, but this is a podcast, so we don't want you to sound like that. So
I don't want-
that's why.
Not a typical announcement for the passengers. No.
Yeah, we want to actually understand what you're saying. Okay, is that better? Whoever
Yep,
was
that is.
okay. Excellent. All right. Let's see. Was there anything else I was going to do before we move on? Don't think so.
Turn the recorder on.
Say again, Captain Nick.
Turn the recorders on.
Oh, I've already done that.
Wow.
Actually, I know. I'm on top of it. I do. Yeah, please add the video to the stage, Liz. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to start with one that we received from Thomas Tordell, not sure. One of our APG community members sent this to us. He said, great situational awareness by the ATC controller. And if you've not seen it, and then he gives us a YouTube link. We're going to play this YouTube video right now, and we're going to discuss it. So here we go.
Please pass on to Syracuse, minimum vectors, and clear the way for me. I'm just stuck on anybody.
And Venom 01, as it stands right now, we've got you direct to the field. Expect no vectors or delay. Next sector knows that you're minimum fuel, and you can contact Boston Center now, tree 77.1.
Thanks for your help. Venom Center, Venom 01, flight level 280.
Venom 01, Boston Center, right.
Center, bike 51, please.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We just checked the pre-coordinate our block altitude in the R609, flight level 250, flight level 280.
Bison 21, Roger, have that on request. And you're looking for a booger and what other flight?
Crazy.
Roger. Venom 1, I know you're going to Syracuse in minimum fuel. I do have a tanker, an AR609, waiting for some F-16s that are also out of Burlington. I don't know if we could arrange that, if you can, or if you want, be interested in getting a little refuel prior to going to Syracuse.
Yes.
Bison 21 Boston.
Go for Bison 21 flight.
I have a single F-16, 40 miles to your east, minimum fuel at flight level 280. He is bingo fuel right now, going to Syracuse, diverting from Burlington. Would you be willing to refuel, give him a little fuel?
Affirmative for Bison 21 flight.
Venom 1, the UHF primary for the refueling 276.5.
Copy 276.5. Return them immediately.
Bison 21 flight 150.
T150 for Bison 21 flight.
Venom 1, the tanker Bison 21 flight at 2 is turning to a 150 degree heading. You'll be able to intercept them in about 4 minutes.
Venom, thanks.
Venom 1, the Bison flight's turning to a 150 heading, southeasterly heading, and is declared MARSA. And just let you know when you have radar on them.
Venom radar contact.
Venom 1, Roger. Bison 2-1, Venom 1, cleared to conduct aerial refueling along AR609, maintain refueling altitudes, flight level 250, flight level 280.
Venom clear down there in 609, flight level, block altitude of 2528 with Venom 01.
Bison 2-1, you can maneuver as necessary to affect the intercept and the refueling.
Bison 2-1 affirmative, thank you.
Venom 1, change tank frequencies approved.
Yes, sir, I know you've been busy. It's Envoy 3668. We had to level off 230.
Envoy 3668, roger. Climb and maintain flight level 340.
Climb 340, Envoy 3668. Nice job with those guys. Center, Venom 01, tankers in sight.
Venom 01, roger. Change tanker frequency approved, and just give me a call when you are done and what you'd like to do.
Copy that. I am up at both frequencies right now. Just up there, straight over the site. That is 2-1 flight.
Venom 1, I understand.
Bison 2-1 flight dash 2 request.
Bison 2 on bed.
Bison 2-1-2 is going to return, and Bison 2-1 is going to remain in 609 until Venom 01 makes his approach interview.
Bison 2-1, roger. I understand. Bison 2-2 will be RTB to Niagara. That is correct. At flight level 270.
Confirm for Bison 2-2.
Venom 1, say altitude.
Venom 01, Captain 24.5 to 24.
Roger. Bison 2-1, Venom 1, Bison 2-2. March is terminated between all three.
Bison 2-2.
Venom 1, flight present heading now, vectors for the ILS, Syracuse, descend and maintain 1,000 and 11,000. Just fly heading 225.
Copy, guys, 225, 1,000. Thanks for helping me. That was a nice job at getting that. Thanks, guys.
Venom 1, no problem, my pleasure. Bison 2-1, go ahead.
Hey, Bison 2-1, we're going to hang out in AR 609 on the track at flight level 260 while Venom makes his approach in. Once we get the AOK, we will request our flight back to Niagara. That's all right with you?
Bison 2-1, approved.
Water, Tom, this is Syracuse 136.
Venom 1, contact Syracuse approach on 127.42.
2742, good day, and again, thanks for the help.
No problem. Bison 2-2, contact Cleveland Center 127.47.
127.47, Bison 2, thanks for helping us here.
Thank you. Bison 2-1, the Venom flight has landed at Syracuse.
That's good news for Bison 2-1.
Okay. I'm not sure what that is. That's the end. I don't think I watched the whole thing, apparently. Okay. So there you have it. Now, I did a little research on this, and the Air National Guard unit at Burlington now flies F-35s. They switched over to, or transitioned to the F-35 fleet back in 2019. So this was an older liveatc.net recording, apparently, that they were able to find. Whoever did this video, I should probably give them attribution. I just don't recall exactly who this is from. Looks like, can you guys tell from that? I can't read the little logo in the upper left-hand corner of the YouTube video, but anyway, but we'll have a link to this video in the show notes, and you can take a look at it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that this was excellent situational awareness. Okay.
I do have a...
Yeah, what, Stefan?
I'm sorry. Since I'm new here, I'm a little bit shy. I don't know when to talk. Maybe the audience will forgive me. But I have, of course, as a non-military guy, I have questions like, what is bingo fuel and something like that? Or Masa,
okay.
is that
well,
the
I'll tell
call
you what,
sign?
Let's
Yeah?
anytime you want to jump in, just jump
Yeah.
in. But
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to hold that thought and maybe restate it again after we figure out what's going on with my audio. Everybody's saying that my audio is a bit scratchy at times. That's from Neil. And I think Captain Nick and Liz are both saying that it's crackly, my audio.
Yeah, it was on the background of the tape and in your audio. It's better probably in your audio, but it's coming through every 10 seconds or so. We're getting a little section, another 5 seconds or so of quite loud crackling.
Well, that's not good. Well, let me see. Let me take a look at what's going on.
It's only occurring when you speak, so it seems to be related with, your output.
Yeah. And it started when you started playing the video. I don't know if it helps.
Even Tim.
Okay. Even Tim hears it? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It must be bad. I'm wondering if it's that I'm just overtaxing my MacBook Air laptop again.
I know you've been bumping up volumes. Could it be an issue of, you hitting the limits on?
Well, no,
amps?
I haven't bumped up anything on my own volume.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. Let me do this. Let me turn off. I wonder if I have the noise assist on. I do. I'm gonna turn that all the way off. Okay. I don't know if you're hearing any difference or if it's still crackling.
It's better.
Okay.
Keep talking, Jeff, because
Yeah, otherwise.
Although I'm not
no,
sure.
it's still there.
No, it's still there.
Still there.
Okay. Okay, let me look at all the things I have running. I need the sound playing app. I need Reader to record. I need Audio Hijack as my virtual recorder. I need Chrome on here to be on StreamYard and to look at the notes in Evernote. Yeah, pretty much everything I have running right now is required. Okay, let me they have two separate Wi-Fi SSIDs here. Let me switch to the other one. Maybe that's the problem. So I'm going to switch over. Hopefully I won't leave.
Now he can't hear us. We can make comments about him. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you want to say like, "Oh, Jeff, you're my star." Oh, he's back again.
He's back. Okay.
Say something, Jeff.
Yeah. Hello. Test. Check. 1, 2, 3.
Good so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it intermittently comes back.
Oh.
What was
Yep,
that?
it seems to be, I reckon it's associated with the magnitude of whatever you're saying. So when you do a hard sound, it kicks off.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to do here.
Could you go and sit by the piano and try talking from it?
Whoa. I almost fell backwards in my chair. I could move the volume down on my. How's that? Any better?
No, it's still there, I'm afraid.
What'd you say, Liz? Oh, actually, now you're starting to crackle for me.
Ah.
And that's Unity. That's interesting.
Getting the odd little break in your audio as well. So.
Okay. I'm wondering, let's just do another experiment here. Let me turn Unity off. And so I won't be able to hear you, Liz. You'll have to communicate either by coming in or... Okay.
Hand signals. That's the best way.
Hand signals, yeah.
Yeah.
Smoke signals. No, I might not see those.
She blows those. You never guess where.
Up your skirt.
Morse code. Did you learn Morse code? I did. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
We could.
I never had to.
Ah.
Okay.
It was voluntary at my flight school.
Unity is off. And is the audio still acting up?
No.
Hello.
Keep talking.
Test. 1, 2, 3. Let me see. I can read something.
Yeah, it is a little.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, then it's not Unity.
Although it is a little better.
I don't know what it could be.
It could be that new microphone. I think you need to put that in a box and send it to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't think it's the microphone, though, however, because when I'm playing a movie or a video or whatever, it is also crackling.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
yeah, no,
it's
back with a vengeance now. I don't want that mic.
I'm looking forward to episode 1000 where you play the recaps, and this will show up also again as when you start looking for the noise.
Highlight.
Yeah.
You'll not see it.
Yeah. No. Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Let me look at my stats here to see what's going on with the machine.
I mean, it's the first time, Captain Nick. Is that normal for the podcast when it's going live like this?
This is going very smoothly compared with our normal ones, Stefan.
Yeah. I'm usually listening to the podcast only, very seldom to the video, and I only was, I think, 3 times live. I saw you, and it was always too slow,
Nothing
exactly. If you're watching live, you need half a day.
Yeah.
So I actually have to wear those incontinence pants nowadays, so that I can stay live long enough to cope with all these outtakes.
Yeah. So all you have to do is look at the actual videos and see how long the videos, because they track from the very beginning to the very end, and you see that Captain Nick is lying.
Yeah. No, well, sometimes, I mean, very often you send him to bed. It's most probably because in England it's already 3 o'clock in the morning then, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, because I'm sitting in a puddle. That's why.
I wish I could help.
Graphics is...
I've told him to get a new computer. I don't know how many times I've told him to get a new computer.
You don't have a cable, attached to your MacBook? No, yeah. You have to go through wireless, huh? To VLAN, I mean.
What?
Are you cable
Ethernet.
on
Ethernet,
the internet? Are you cable connected today, or are you wireless?
No, but the I'm getting 250 up and down.
Okay. Oh, okay, right. That's good.
So I don't think the Wi-Fi is the issue, and I'm
still
not
for
even
life,
sure where their routers are, and I'm not sure I have a Ethernet cable long enough to go to wherever their Ethernet. I mean, where their routers are. Yeah, everything looks
very good, Nick. Neil, thank you for that.
Graphics. It might be that I'm driving this studio display. That could be maybe the issue. Let's try this. Okay, how am I going to do this? I think if I disconnect that, I'm going to have to do, okay, I'm going to take the Apple Studio display out of the chain.
Ooh, it's going to be exciting.
But in order for this for me to do this, I have to get another thing that has hubs, like a hub. What do you call it?
Doesn't matter. You just do it.
I'll just do it.
Good idea. Just do it. While you're doing that, I'm going for a pee.
All right. You do that.
Shall I get a glass of wine then?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting.
Okay. So everybody's now got.
What?
Shall I entertain the folks while you're doing something? I mean, I don't know how, but I can tell them some German poems, which nobody understands. Reading something from Schiller or Goethe,
Most interesting
no.
thing.
Aviation poems.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Okay.
Or talk to him. Maybe, hey, ask Stefan some questions in the chat.
Yeah, that's would be. I can see the chat. I can answer things to entertain everybody. I hope Liz will cut that out though later on. Now everybody's going. I'm new in this podcast. I'm thrown in the hot water, and now both guys are going away. Lovely. Well, if anybody is interested in a German podcast, I can do some shameless plugging now. If anybody is interested in a German podcast, and I have my own, but you have to also speak German. It's basically same, not the same, but similar to this one Jeff is doing. But also since I'm now retired, we also talk a little bit about procedures and flying small airplanes because that's what I'm doing now. I guess nobody's putting anything in the chance. I have nothing to tell, I guess. Great. I can show you some models here. I have, oh. Do you have one of those? Anybody? I have. I was there in London. Is anybody? Okay. Jeff, I can't. Nick, I can't hear you.
But sorry, Paul.
Yeah.
I was just saying, poor Stefan. They threw you in at the deep end.
Yeah, I said, hey, I got to note you. By the way, you're doing the show now on your own. Bye.
Excellent. I love it. That's very good.
Yeah.
Ah, dear. So how are you getting on? You telling some good jokes?
I try to. I mean, I tried. You're doing a good job.
I've got a good joke that you might find amusing. I have to say it in a special accent because it's a Monty Python joke.
Yeah.
And it goes, my dog has no nose. How does he smell? Awful.
Yeah. Okay. I like this one. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all right. If you're a Monty Python fan, you'll remember that joke, I'm sure.
We have an old German one. It's very similar to a German comedian. He says there's a couple meeting after a couple of years and say, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. We are doing fine. And something new? Oh, yes, we have now pets at home. Oh, what it? Oh, we have skunks at home. Skunks? But where do you put it? Oh, in our sleeping room. But what about the smell? Well, the animals have to get used to it. That's the same one. Yeah.
Very good. I love it.
Awful. Yeah, it's an awful joke. It's awful. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is indeed.
Old white man telling jokes, is it?
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank God that's over.
I want to do maybe some. Do you know this kind of nice bottle of beer? Wine? I'm sorry, wine. It has old airplanes on it.
Oh, it does. So it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one edition of Fabelhaft. And it has all from my old company. Oh, sorry. Don't have to. No, and has all airplanes on it. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe if you're an airplane geek and you try to get some of this wine here, very nice. Converjet. Where is it? All kinds, and also the beautiful, of course, old Junkers.
Oh yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at Jeff's chest now.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Yeah.
Well, we assume it's Jeff and not Charles Atlas. I think he's dead.
Oh. Okay.
Hello, Jeffrey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Any weird noises yet?
Nope.
Okay. Let me. This is fun.
I know. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Stefan's having a great introduction to the APG.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what happens.
Yeah.
No, haven't had a single crackle yet.
No, this is good enough. Yeah.
I think that maybe it was just overtaxing my MacBook Air.
New computer.
I am definitely going to get one. It's just I'm waiting for the September event to see if they're going to update the MacBook line, MacBook Pro line with the new chip.
30 days, that's September, April, June, and then...
Why don't you get an old Mac Mini, a small one? It's also only that small.
I have a Mac Mini
okay.
That I occasionally use, but for some reason, the last time I tried to use it, it was there was something going wrong with it. I'm not sure what that was all about, but I didn't have time to mess with it. And the last couple of I've used this MacBook Air a few times since the Mac Mini was acting up, and seemed to go okay. But I don't think I was driving the studio display with it.
How old is the Mac Mini?
It's an M1.
Okay.
Let me do one more thing, just to give. I don't like this looking down at the laptop.
Jeff, are you staying out of Unity or using Unity now?
I'm not in it yet, but I will be shortly. Let me turn it on. Let me turn it on for you.
Captain, just it has nothing to do with me. I just want to make sure. Is it?
No.
No.
It's everything to do with you. And if you weren't here, then you wouldn't have these issues.
Yeah.
No, it's nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Okay. It must be the sending it to the studio display did the thing. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm still adjusting.
Well, I have to say the view's better than what we were seeing before.
Thank you. That's not nice. All right. Boom, boom. There we go. That's a better angle, I think. A better angle of the dangle.
Yep, that looks good.
Okay. Great. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, the audio will hold up for us. And, I'll have to fix everything in post, as I always do. Yeah.
We just finished with Stefan asking what bingo meant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, when you're ready, I'm ready as well.
Okay. I think, just let me make sure that everything is still running. Recorder is still on. Yeah. Okay. Go for it, Stefan.
One moment. I think I joined the chat now. Okay, with my. Okay. They said we called it fuel bingo or something. He said. So I'm, as a civil guy, I said I don't know what that is. You know.
Well, is there anybody here that would understand what that might mean?
Oh, I know, sir.
Oh, okay.
It's a game we play, Stefan, where you have a person that shouts out numbers, and you cross them off on a piece of paper.
Okay.
And when you cross off the right correct, make a line of numbers, you shout bingo.
And that's
or
usually,
if you're an American.
Yeah. But that's usually for guys at your age that play that, isn't that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's in the NATO book of sort of not exactly code words, but brevity words. So bingo normally means that you're at minimum fuel, and you need to go back to base. There are slightly different words if you're extremely short of fuel. And there are other words that indicate that you're coming down towards your bingo fuel. But when you're at bingo, you're heading home. Most people recognize that. So you might call a joker if you're coming towards bingo fuel. You might tell the fighter controllers that you're chicken RTB, and that's a similar phrase. Anyway, so that's what it means. It means I'm short of gas.
And how many, just a curiosity, what does it fuel bingo means? What kind of fuel you're landing then at here, Syracuse?
With your absolute minimum diversion fuel. You might not even have diversion fuel, because I think he had already decided that he wasn't going to make it to his home base.
Okay.
And he was going to land at somewhere else because it was closer, Syracuse. Mm-hmm. So he was bingo for Syracuse, which is the closest airfield, I guess. He knew he could go in there and take fuel.
Mm-hmm. And just a curiosity, does it mean that his engine will flame out during taxi, or what does minimum fuel mean? Does it have a half hour left, 10 minutes left, 50 minutes left? What's the minimum? Depends on the
down
military.
to the individual. There's no in my experience, there's no absolute set amount, but normally in the way we operated, we would be given a minimum fuel to land with. So you had to be on the ground with that minimum fuel, and then you'd add your transit fuel on top of that and call that your bingo fuel.
Okay, so but it was less than civil, you would say, less than the usual civil minimum, like half an hour.
Heavens, yes. Yeah, I mean, civil fuel.
More serious.
Yeah, it'd be. He's got probably less than 30 minutes, so he's already in Mayday situation if he was a civil airliner.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, interestingly, you could just tell by his tone of voice when he said, "Would you like to go by and get some fuel from the tanker?" And he goes, "Yes."
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay.
And also regarding bingo, that's a term that I don't know if you used it in your civil world, Captain Nick, but we at Delta always, when we calculated, when we're up there holding for whatever reason, and we know what fuel we require to depart the holding pattern and make it to our destination, we usually call that bingo fuel. So, our bingo, and then this is something that we calculate, we work out, and sometimes adjust, but we'll just usually use that term. Okay, our bingo fuel is going to be, 13,000 or 12,500 or something like that, which is understood to mean once we hit that, we're no longer going to be holding in that pattern anymore. We're going to our divert.
I think that would be because you had so many ex-military guys in your airline, that was probably adopted, whereas not so in my outfit. You'd have to come up with a civilian equivalent.
Okay. And I think all the civilians that we have had and are continuing to have at Delta are probably familiar with the term, since so many, as you said, so many of us have come from military backgrounds. So it's just become a commonly used term in the U.S. at least. Okay.
So I think it was very handy that the controller had those two tankers on board and that they were willing to be vectored towards the F-16. That was great. The F-16, I think the cartoon, as it were, of these airplanes flying around probably didn't indicate how close that the F-16 really wanted to be. If I was in the F-16, I'd want to be pointed directly at those tankers, no turning room, nothing, because I'm in an F-16. If I want to turn through 180 degrees to roll in behind the tanker, I only need 1,000 feet. I don't need 2 miles, which is just going to put me in a bit of a tail chase. And that's the last thing you want when you're a bit short of gas, is to end up having to chase down the tanker, because that's just throwing gas out the back. And the other thing I think the controller might have done, but I wasn't sure, I would also, as soon as the F-16 and the tankers got close enough to each other, I'd turn and point them at Syracuse, because if for some reason the guy gets in behind his tankers and he can't take on fuel. The boom fails to operate. Something gets damaged while he's trying to take on fuel. He's got to be in a situation where he's getting closer all the time to his destination airfield, so that he doesn't end up, being stuck even further away, and now having wasted fuel trying to get into contact with the tankers.
I think in this case, I'm not sure because I didn't look.
It looked about right from the diagrams. It looked
from the diagram.
like they
so as you said,
had
those depictions sometimes aren't very accurate. But
no.
6 aerial refueling track 609, I think, is probably pretty close to Syracuse.
Yeah.
Corey says it's bingo for me at my airline. Okay. Yeah. Again, he's flying for a major airline that has had and continues to have a lot of current and prior military. Okay.
Interesting.
And the
nice
other
to
thing
see.
Excuse me?
Interesting and nice to see. Well coordinated by the controller. I wasn't sure if he was a military controller or a civil controller, because if he was military, pardon me, he would have been doing this all day, every day. He would have been actually very au fait with doing something like this. If he was a civil controller, hats off, because they're not necessarily trained or practiced in this kind of thing.
He was acting in a role as a civilian air traffic controller, but he may have had military background.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
He seemed to be well organized from that point of view.
The other thing that I was going to mention was I think they used the term MARSA.
Yeah, that's what
And that's military accepts responsibility for separation of aircraft, I believe. I'm not sure about the A aircraft, but it's basically the tankers and the client are all taking responsibility for separation. So the air traffic control doesn't have to actively separate using radar separation procedures. So
it would be interesting to see how the radar guy can do that. I mean, when they get that close, I mean, he has to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of the things that if as a receiver, as a fighter coming up to tankers, one of the things you have to do is remember to turn off your transponder, so that you don't get garbled squawks from the aircraft as you get close. So air traffic controllers wouldn't be able to make out one squawk from another. And then as soon as you're sort of in behind and in formation, then the tanker then takes responsibility for the whole formation.
Now Jeff is gone.
All interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on and to our next item, which also involves a video. And if you'll put that on the stage, Liz, and then I will get... You're not seeing it. Okay. Hang on. Oh, what happened to it? Interesting. Okay. Well, let me go find it. Maybe I never re-added it after all the fiasco there. Okay, here we go. Share. So now you probably see it. Okay, here we go.
On August 9th, 2024, a small aircraft crashed into the Air Liquide industrial plant in Rosario, Argentina, killing the pilot, the sole occupant. The crash damaged the plant's warehouse roof and triggered an evacuation due to flammable materials on site. Emergency services quickly secured the area, and no other injuries were reported. Witnesses noted the plane flying at a low altitude before the crash. Investigations by local authorities are underway, with early speculation suggesting technical issues, potential revenge, or a suicide attempt by the pilot, who was recently fired from Air Liquide. The company expressed and is cooperating fully with the investigation as the community grapples with the tragedy.
Oh, it was? Are we having issues again?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yay!
Again, when you started the video, maybe it has something to do with this.
Oh. Great.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's triggered the problem again, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
This video.
I'm assuming that was a swear word. It was
Yeah.
very nicely cut out. Well done.
That's a dark, buddy. Oh. Yeah, we may have to try this again on another day. Sadly. No. Oh. Yeah, I think what I'm going to have to do, I guess, is can you understand me at all?
We're getting about 50% of what you're saying.
Now.
Yeah, the Unity is fine.
I can't hear him now. Not at all.
Yeah, don't worry. We're talking on this.
I see. Okay, Unity. Okay. So, folks, it's me again, entertaining you. While the other two come back on my own screen again. Okay.
Okay,
so
back in StreamYard.
We're back.
Garbled.
Jeff is going to retire from podcasting after tonight, and he wishes to thank you very much indeed for your loyalty over the last few years. And
my replacement. I mean, I would want to overtake the show. I mean, you can play. Nick and I can try to talk about what we see or whatever, but yeah.
He's going to try and rejig his setup, but we'll come on another night. Hopefully, Stefan will be able to join us on another night. Yeah, Jeff? Yeah, Jeff's giving a thumbs up.
Well, after this, maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
after this, he's thinking,
what have you done? Your audio's fantastic now.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
Oh, well, it must be the fact, whatever it was that video introduced into the audio system has timed out.
You're threading the internet, and so he turned it on again.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we did it the old-fashioned way instead of trying to use Keynote from me for videos. We could try that if you guys are game, and we just make it a shorter show. Okay. Okay, let me see. How am I going to do that? Okay, let me get rid of this. Stop screen sharing. And I'm going to go and I'm going to quit Keynote so that I don't have any of that running. Okay, and then I'm going to... what?
Uh-oh.
Just started again.
All I did was quit an app.
Well.
New computer. I mean, the MacBook Air is not so powerful. I
guess not.
Yeah.
All I did was quit an application.
Yeah, but your CPU usage would have gone up as the program shut down.
Okay.
And now it's fine again.
Okay. So let's see here. And I'm sorry about the timing of all this, Liz. Okay, we're going to, let's see. So we're going to do it.
You know, it's like flying. Flying is hours of total boredom punctuated by seconds of pure horror. So it's like a flight we're doing here, no? Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You shouldn't be so bad, or so bad on yourself. You're not a horror. Come on.
No, well, I'm here at the best podcast of the universe. So how can I?
Thank you.
Yeah, indeed.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Okay, where is the one ex-employee? Okay, I'm going to open, and
It's
it's trying to do something.
maybe also the hard disk of your MacBook Air
it
is
messing
quite
up
full. It's quite full, and now it's the RAM. It's full, and now it
No,
has to do RAM compression. And then when you quit an app, it's always,
yeah, I'll just draw it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. I'll just put up the link, and then I'll just give a couple of minutes while everybody watches it from home, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so...
A small aircraft crashed into the Air Liquide industrial plant in Rosario, Argentina, killing the pilot, the sole occupant. The crash damaged the plant's warehouse roof and triggered an evacuation due to flammable materials on site. Emergency services quickly secured the area, and no other injuries were reported. Witnesses noted the plane flying at a low altitude before the crash. Investigations by local authorities are underway, with early speculation suggesting technical issues, potential revenge, or a suicide attempt by the pilot, who was recently fired from Air Liquide. The company expressed condolences and is cooperating fully with the investigation as the community grapples with the tragedy.
Okay.
That worked
Okay.
worked well.
I'm going to talk a little bit now and see if I'm okay. Okay, yeah, because I think the StreamYard server is doing all the work of the video playback and everything when I do it like that. My machine is not. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk about this. Interesting scenario here where it sounds like a disgruntled worker after being fired, as I mentioned in the video, either committed suicide, wanted to, have some revenge or do harm to the folks that actually fired him from Air Liquide or Air Liquid Air. They produce medical gases, hydrogen, and other very highly flammable gases. And I think this person was probably hoping that by crashing into the plant, it was going to cause a big boom and a big explosion. It didn't, but he did manage to kill himself and destroy a perfectly good airplane. But that's kind of sad. But I just thought it was interesting to see that surveillance video and the angle at which that Cessna was coming in, that Cessna 152 for landing, not landing, for, permanent landing. Pull up. Anyway.
Yeah, it seemed to be pretty deliberate because it's not like it was out of control or didn't look like it was out of control. It's wings level in quite a steep angle aiming at the building. So I think you're right, Jeff. There's little doubt that he had decided to take his own life and perhaps cause some revenge in the process. So very sad that he felt, that was his only course to take. And we've seen this before with other suicide, successful and otherwise, from people. And it's always tragic. And, we just need to have a thought for him. This wasn't someone who was in his right mind when he did that. No one, I think, who commits suicide is totally in control of themselves at the time. So, very sad.
Yeah.
Well, let's try some runway excursion news items. What do you think? Let's go.
Oh, that's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
01B. Yeah, then to talk about people committing suicide and crashing airplanes. Okay. Liz is saying, I think it's coming up to about a half an hour.
Yeah.
We're not really sure. Okay. So let's do this one here from the Aviation Herald. It was an accident, a Royal Air Maroc, Boeing 737-800, registration Charlie November. I knew this was going to happen one day. With Romeo.
Were you
Golf
sure
Whiskey.
you were an airline pilot,
Yeah,
Chef? Charlie November, Romeo
I was,
Golf
honestly.
Whiskey. How's that?
There are people that are listening to the show actually have seen me wearing a pilot uniform, but actually haven't seen me flying an airplane, though. Yeah, I see. I get your point. Anyway, Liz was on one of my flights. She can verify that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So registration: Charlie November Romeo Golf Whiskey, performing flight 567 from Casablanca, Morocco to Monrovia, Liberia. Landed on Monrovia's runway 04 at 6:15 local time, but after touchdown, veered left beyond the edge of the runway before returning onto the runway center line. The aircraft slowed without further incident, vacated the runway, and taxied to the apron. Nothing to see here. The aircraft received substantial damage, and was unable to continue its schedule. The return flight was canceled. Let's see. The weather at the time.
That looks painful. We're looking at some indentations on the fuselage, some wrinkling.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that there is some quite severe airframe damage there.
Yeah. So I wonder how would that have happened? That wrinkling of the fuselage skin. Now I can get why this happened. We're looking at the photo of the main landing gear and the strut, and it's covered with grass and mud and vegetation from around the airport runway.
Yeah.
But the part with the big dents in the side just aft of the wing, that first one. Yeah. What in the world caused that?
I'm looking at it now. If that would have been anything thrown up by the wheels, it would also have damaged the flaps. So I'm also very wondered what that could be.
Well, I'm kind of assuming that if you're going off the runway, you're going to probably you're going to go down off the tarmac, you're going to bounce through the mud, you're going to bounce up onto the tarmac. All those shocks through the left main gear might have distorted the airframe. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah,
well,
because there's no dirt or muck on that part of the fuselage to indicate it was damaged by debris. Although it could have been, but Stefan's quite right. The flap probably would have got in the way.
Yeah,
Stefan's flown the 737.
He has indeed.
Yeah.
How many times did you do this, Stefan? Was this a regular occurrence?
I mean, not for me at least, I hope. But
I'm really not. I'd rather
honestly,
not talk about it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, bending. You've seen pictures where the landing was so hard that the fuselage was bent, but it doesn't look like that. There would be more damage around on the other side as well. I mean, it looked like more something bumped against it, and there's some dirts and there's some puncture. If you look a little bit more further down, after you see a lot of dirt points there, so it must have been something which hit it. Maybe it was a big, I don't know, could have,
or could
some
it
soft,
have been something that occurred separate from this runway excursion. Maybe a hard landing before.
Because we haven't actually worked out why he went off the runway. There's no explanation why. Perhaps he'd had a hard landing beforehand.
Yeah, that might be. Yeah,
I don't know.
The weather, light rain, not too bad of a ceiling. 500 few, 1,200 broken. So that's not a super low ceiling. The winds were pretty light, 5 knots, 6 knots. There were some cumulonimbus in the area, but yeah, I'm wondering if it was just a very hard landing that caused those wrinkles, and then that's what was the catalyst for going off the runway.
Did you see the first picture in your show notes or in the plan? It's a panel which is full of mud and everything, and this one I identified it, for my knowledge, that is the waste panel of the aft toilet. You can see the handle sticking out where you release the pre-pressure with it when the honey wagon comes and attach it. Yep. So, and it's on the opposite side you see the aft cargo compartment, if I'm correct. And so how come that so much dirt and stuff gets thrown up there and even pushes out the panel, or rips off the panel? So that would be interesting as well. So there must be something which has thrown up in the back. Remember the picture of the other airplane, the A320. It was a year or so, went also off in the mud, and you see how the dirt was flying up. You remember that picture?
Right.
But it
Yes,
was somewhere
indeed.
in Belgrade or something.
Yeah.
So maybe it must have been this.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, to have ripped that panel off and to have completely stuffed it full of
brown
dirt
stuff.
Well, yes, I was going to say, that brown stuff is common out of there. But no, that's been
It's blue,
a lot
by
of
the way.
spray has come up from the ground, I think.
So actually, the guy who's looking at you, he's happy that it's brown and not blue, because blue means
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you really be happy if it was brown?
Well,
yeah.
Well, it certainly seems very sad.
Good thing there wasn't smell-o-vision or anything.
Yeah.
All right, and then here's another excursion, 01E, or 01E. This involves a Swiss Air 777. Let's see, the incident occurred on Saturday when Swiss Flight 161 from Tokyo Narita to Zurich was forced to make an emergency diversion to the Kazakh capital, Astana, because one of the passengers was experiencing a medical emergency. The 777 landed safely in Astana following a short detour from its planned flight path, where the passenger was tended to by emergency responders and taken to a local hospital. It was at this point, however, that things started to go wrong. According to a spokesperson for Swiss, after dropping off the sick passenger, the Boeing 777-300 was set to resume its journey to Zurich, but the departure from Astana turned out to be anything but smooth. Unfortunately, am I pronouncing that right? Astana?
Astana, yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, the taxiway at Astana Airport was closed, so air traffic controllers asked the pilots to turn the 74-meter-long aircraft around at the end of the runway so that they could take off. So it was kind of a back taxi maneuver. It was during this maneuver that the front landing gear of the aircraft ended up coming off of the runway and into the mud at the side of the tarmac. The aircraft ended up stuck in the mud, and the passengers had to be deplaned and taken into the airport terminal while a plan was drawn up to get them out of Kazakhstan. Let's see, Swiss Airlines is part of the Lufthansa group. The carrier was able to tap fellow group carrier. Yeah, that's a big problem there. Fellow group carrier Austrian, who have arranged for a rescue flight to pick up the stranded passengers. Let's see. The passenger was handed over, blah, blah, blah. As the taxiway was closed, this is from the airline. The crew had to turn the aircraft on the runway. The aircraft's nose wheel got caught in the grass. Okay. The aircraft had to be towed back onto the runway. The Boeing 777 will now be examined by specialists for damage. Anyway, so Stefan helped us out by providing some graphics, and we can see now. Looks like the runway is kind of the standard 45 meters, 148 feet wide. This is always a tricky maneuver, especially in a very large aircraft. I would imagine, you two flew very large airplanes, the A380 and the A340. And in fact, I think the A340 is one of the longest ever created. Is that right, Captain Nick?
Yeah, the A380 wasn't quite as long. The only one that beat it was the 747-8, I think, if I'm correct.
And so the wheelbase is quite long, which means that the turning radius is also quite long.
It was a big problem for the 340, and it took some time, like Stefan's 380. It took a long time for airports to get around to working out which corners you were allowed to take and which would exceed the turning capability of the aeroplane, and which is one of the reasons we had cameras on the gear to show us where they were all going at the time. I don't know if the 777 had that facility, but certainly, and we had to do these kind of maneuvers at the Caribbean destinations quite regularly, and particularly for takeoff, and they used to give a turning pan with all sorts of markings lined up, none of which we're allowed to use because no one had bothered to set them up for the geometry of our airplane. So the company said, you're not allowed to use any of those. but we don't want you to go off. So be good boys and
Good luck.
just turn properly. Like professional pilots should, not like these people who have to rely on all these signs and lines and indicators and things. And I used to hate having to do this. It was a captain's only maneuver, and I used to be sitting there with two engines screaming, the inboard engines at nothing, full tiller. You could feel the nose wheel juddering and scrubbing as you're trying to get the airplane to bite and go around the corner. And you're just, you can see so little because your nose is off the runway, and the wheel that you're worried about, the nose wheel, is right behind you. It's like 20 feet behind you, and you're just kind of hoping and praying that it's still on the tarmac and everything's working out. And I feel so sorry for this bloke because, obviously he by the looks of it, I don't quite, it looks like he drove straight off. I don't quite understand why there's a straight line. I would normally have expected it to be quite a sharp angle as he just drifted off with his nose wheel scrubbing and things, but I'm not quite sure why he's just
I'm assuming
sitting there.
That this is like 90 degrees into the turn, and the nose wheel was at, turned 90 degrees from what we see now. And then once they went off, they just let it go and then it straightened out. Although you're right, I don't see any tracks in the
leading up to that. So I don't know quite. What do you reckon, Stefan?
Yeah. What do you think has gone on here, Stefan?
Well, first of all, look at the graphic. I mean, the runway is only 45 meters wide. It has some shoulder on it, but I don't know how much. I provided the graphic there. But would you make a turn in the middle of the runway with an airplane? I mean, I looked up and read it. I found a graphic, and it says that the minimum turn width is something, by this graphic here now. You see the minimum turn width, if you make a correct circle, you would barely make it on the runway, but you need more because some skidding or everything. The recommended pavement you needed is something like what it says in the small one.
34.7 meters for his aircraft, I think. And that's the nose wheel.
Yeah. So actually, but the pavement one is 56. Is it this one there on this? He's on the 300.
Yeah.
So
56 meters for minimum required pavement. That's what A stands for.
And so actually he had never had a chance to make the turn there. I don't know how much the shoulders is, but how could he done this turn? I mean, why? What he was thinking? Maybe he had different number. Maybe he thought, I can use the shoulder or not. He has different charts or what, but it didn't work out apparently.
I'm wondering if he saw that number 34.7 meters and thinking, we got 45, so we'll be fine, and didn't really understand that, no, you really need the 56 meters to make that 180 turn.
Yeah, well, that limit is just a pure geometry limit, assuming he's got his main wheels right up the edge of the runway. Yeah. He gets on full deflection on the nose wheel steering, and there's no sort of slipping of that nose wheel, and he pivots with an absolutely stationary left-hand bogey, which we weren't allowed to do because you could wreck the bogey doing this. And presumably full out power on the outboard engine. And the geometry says you can do it. But, of course, you're never going to put your main wheel that close to the edge of the runway. You're always going to give yourself a little bit of leeway. And, of course, you're never going to get a perfect turn like that. You're never going to let the left-hand gear be stationary, otherwise you're twisting the oleo like nobody's business. It's just dreadful for the aeroplane. So you've got to build in an error factor, which I don't think he realized he had to.
For Captain Nick and Stefan, Captain Stefan. Looking at this diagram that we're showing right now in the video, the right main bogey is about as close as you can get it to the edge of the runway. Is there? I know that the A340 and probably the 380 have cameras located in certain places to see various vantage points. Would there be a camera that would be helpful to see how close your wheels were to the edge of the runway?
On my airplane, yes, it was. We had a tail camera, and it has the dimensions of the main wheel printed on the screen. put on the screen as well as an overlay, so I could basically drive that close to the runway. But my OMB, my manual says only one number. I need minimum 60 meters for a turn. That's my company limit. And there was no second number like this one here, where it's theoretically possible, whatever. And just to mention that the A380 is not as wide as Captain Nick's bird. It's not. It's a big wide bird, but not a long bird. So the A380 could probably much better be had a much shorter turning radius than the here this 777-300, because has a longer wheelbase, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know if the 777 has cameras. I mean, they would have been very useful for him if they had been cameras. But this is why on places where you have to do 180 turns on the runway, they usually build a pan, a sort of an extra dumbbell shaped pan, so that you can drive into this and you've got a bit of extra space to put your wheels without running off the runway.
Or you use a taxiway. You use a taxiway. Even if the taxiway is closed, you go to the end, and then you can use a taxiway for a turnaround. So you have more space.
Indeed, and your picture of the airfield showed that there was actually a bit of a extra concrete at both ends. So I'm not quite sure which end he did his turn, but he had a bit of extra room there on the taxiway. He could have swung his nose wheel up.
I did say that the taxiways are closed, but I guess that's the one. What, taxiway Bravo? Is that the one that was closed, or?
I don't know, but I perhaps it was. But if you look at it and you go, well, this is one of the reasons we have to have all these numbers ready in our heads, or at least know where to go find them in the manuals, so that we can go, no, we can't actually do this maneuver. The runway is too narrow.
In the simulator, we tried one special, just for demonstration. It was a maneuver apparently Airbus tried one time with an A380. At least I see some pictures of very twisted wheels doing that. Maybe I find it out later on. It was a maneuver to actually turn around on less than 45 meters, or on 45-meter wide runway, where you turn, you got in a position like this, then you do a maximum turn with, of course, thrust on the outer engine, and then once you're halfway around, you stop, then you turn the wheel in the opposite direction, then you start reversing on the inbound engine, so you're rolling backwards, but now you have the wheel the other way around. So
right.
You're turning now backwards.
That's
and
cheating.
That's cheating. But that's why we tried it in the simulator. And it worked. It actually worked. But I would never do it in real life, and not with some, at least marshaller waving at it, and not prior calling my chief captain and saying, "Hey, am I allowed to do that?" And he probably would yell at me, "Are you stupid?"
Are you kidding?
Yeah. But you mentioned a good point there, Stefan. It would have been really nice if he'd been able to have a marshaller there, because, he would have had some idea of where the nose wheel was. And the guy, realizing the nose wheel was going to go off, could have stopped him in time, or he could have got a tug out there and let the tug take him around the runway and line him up. Because then because the tug driver can see where everything is, he would be much less likely to pull off into the mud. So, in retrospect, there are lots of things he probably could have done to help himself do this maneuver. But very sad to see that he didn't quite make it. But I'm full of sympathy for him. I really am.
Right. iHaul Boxes in our live audience says, for the 747, it is specifically mentioned in the UACC Jeppesen ref pages to not use any taxiway other than Alpha and Echo. So if you put that graphic back up, Liz, that right there, and Alpha is the one at the right end of the runway, and then what was the other one?
Echo is the other end.
Echo
the other end. Just the taxiways at the ends. So that, yeah, okay.
So
that makes
perhaps he
sense.
could have tried to use those to
Yeah,
give himself a bit of spare space.
right. Well, I'm thinking, yeah, as you said, Captain Nick, I'm sure that he's thinking about all the different things that he could have done to keep him out of trouble after the
And
fact.
I'm sure his chief pilot is reminding him of all of those.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we don't know all the things going up in the back. I mean, it was a diversion. Maybe the duty time was already getting short, and all the pressure and all that stuff
pressure.
you're getting on there. You think, I can make it.
Yeah.
Maybe I've done it before, and
Yeah, it'll work.
yeah,
It always works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for now. All right, let's end our news segment with this last one here from Paddle Your Own Canoe. Hey, it's been a while since we've had something from Paddle Your Own Canoe. Thanks, Liz. Okay, so a man manages to sneak on board Lufthansa flights without a ticket twice in 2 days.
Oh, they're
And is
so
discovered
generous, those Lufthansa
armed with a
people, aren't
knife.
they?
And the last
No,
time I think
come
it was
on,
discovered with a
everybody,
knife.
come on.
Yeah, so let's see. A German man managed to sneak aboard 2 flights in as many days without. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. A Norwegian man. I
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
misread that.
They're much smarter, than the Norwegians.
Anyway, the Norwegian outsmarted the German people at the Munich International Airport. On the second occasion, police discovered he was armed with a knife. That's not good. The bizarre stowaway story began on August 4 when the man managed to bypass ticket checks at Munich Airport's Terminal 2, snuck on board an airplane without ground staff noticing. On this occasion, the man's ploy was quickly discovered when cabin crew realized there wasn't a spare seat for him to sit in on the fully booked flight. The German federal police were called and the man was removed from the plane. It appears that police cited the 39-year-old suspect but later released him. The following day, the man returned to Munich Airport and tried successfully to get on board a plane undetected. Maybe the police should have detained him instead of releasing him.
But how long, Yeah.
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 Fool me twice, fool me once, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah.
The man is believed to have used the same technique to tailgate passengers through both the security checkpoint and the boarding gate, unnoticed by security or airline staff, before settling into a spare seat aboard a Lufthansa flight to Stockholm. Despite not having a boarding pass in his possession, Lufthansa Flight 2418 departed Munich as scheduled, bound for the Swedish capital, Stockholm. The flight landed in Stockholm without incident nearly 2 hours later. It was only then that the cabin crew became suspicious of the Norwegian, who told them that he wanted to fly straight back to Munich. Okay.
It's a nice city.
Okay. It was at this point that the crew made the discovery that they had a stowaway on board, and Swedish police were called to the plane to investigate. Once in the custody of local law enforcement, a 10-centimeter long knife was found in the man's possession. Was he just doing this doing it for like a joyride?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Publicity stunt? I don't know.
But I have a question at you in England. How in Germany it's very common. I mean, pressure, cost pressure, and everything. That it's all automatic gates, basically. You go into the security by showing your boarding pass, and then the door opens and you go through. So if someone sneaks in behind, and there's maybe a guy looking if there's anybody has a little bit of trouble with his boarding passes or doesn't know and doesn't find, but basically you go automatically through little gates through the security. So that's his first point, that if he be very fast and sneak behind someone, and the guy in front doesn't really care if he's been tailgated, so closer, he says, oh, what? And so he's now going through security. And then security, nobody's checking the boarding pass anymore. And he has a 10-centimeter knife, and I think it's legal, by the way, already. You can have a certain amount of centimeters. You can have a knife with you in Europe.
Maybe in Europe. I don't think in the U.S. that would be. Let's see, 10 centimeters is.
Well, we're allowed to have a
4
3-inch blade on our knives in the UK, but I don't think we're allowed to take them
10
on an
centimeters is
airplane.
quite a bit. I mean,
10 centimeters, 3.94 inches, so it's just shy of 4 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think you're allowed to take that on an airplane.
Yeah.
You can have it on your possession, but
And the same with when boarding. There's only one person at the gate, and if he's busy with someone else, and the guy in front of him puts his boarding pass out, and the other one, tailgates him very fast, and he's on the airplane.
Oh yeah, I can see how it happens. Yeah. But
it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't. But there's a lot of security kind of problem in Germany lately with airports. I mean, a lot of activists gluing themselves on runways, and several people trying to sneak in and make demonstration. It's not a good picture right now. They have.
Yeah.
Well, considering all that, Stefan, it was very hard for me to get onto the airport in order to go flying with you. So
yeah.
Tell us about that story.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a very long story, but
okay.
It's quite a kerfuffle to get sufficient authorization. When you're trying to do it properly and be a good boy, I could have climbed over the fence, I'm sure. But
yeah. It's you want to know it? I mean, it's my flying club base is on the company premises, and I have to get him. I have to get him on the company premises, but the security there is not legally authorized for passengers, for crew only. So it's just a paper stamp they're missing. So that's why he had to get out again to get officially a crew passenger security check, and then I can pick him up again. That's stupid.
Yeah.
It's the same search.
Fun, but we went flying together. It was good.
Yeah. And we survived.
And we survived.
Stefan had some very, very complimentary comments, thank you, for your flying skills, Captain Nick, especially steep turns.
I managed not to turn the airplane upside down or pull the wings off. I think that's why he was so complimentary.
Successful.
Yes.
Flight. Okay. Time now for Getting to Know Us. Time of the show where we find out what we've been up to since the last time we were on the show. Now, Stefan, the last time you were on the show was like never, so we don't want to hear your whole life story. We just want an abbreviated version of, tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your career, and then what you've been up to lately.
Okay. How do I become a pilot? Well, my father was applying for me for pilot school. He said, hey, it's a good job for you, probably because he wanted to do it himself. He gave me something to sign, and he said, was it? Well, it's application for my company's pilot school, and I signed it, but I was 16 years old. It was way too young. So after finishing school, they sent me back, and after finishing school, he sent me to this very famous uncle in America, and there I learned flying, and in Santa Monica.
Uncle Sam?
Yeah, Uncle Sam. They're very nice, Uncle Sam. And in the meantime, I went to the military as a drafted soldier, and then I went to this pilot school. I passed through a lot of tests. So this is me. This is my first. You see the guy next to me. We're both wearing white socks. He's on with blue shoes. That's Wolfgang. This Bonanza is where we learned flying. In this Bonanza. In the Bonnie, and that's where he did his solo flight. And I had already soloed before. And this guy in the middle was an old military instructor, and he taught us. So maybe I don't know. I don't know if I learned flying, but anyhow, from this Lufty flight school, I was 22, finished on the 73, 2 years on the 737. Then I went 5 years on the A300. Then I went 3 years on the A340. And with 33, I was getting a captain on Lufthansa again. Oh, that's me in flying for Turkish Airlines, by the way. They had a wet lease. And so I was based for 2 months on northern Cyprus Island. Very lovely cruise. And young guy there, still had full hair. And well, with 33, which was also quite young, I think, I was captain on the 73 for 15 years. And then from the 73, I was also a trainer there. And with then from the 73, I went straight to the Airbus again, for the 380. And
let me interrupt you, if you don't mind.
I wanted to make it short as possible. That's why.
Oh no, you're doing fine. You're doing great. However, I'm a little perplexed because when before we started the show, I asked you like what I should use for an introduction for you, and you started listing all of these airplanes that you had flown, apparently ones that you like. But But you didn't mention the 727.
Did I say 737?
Oh, didn't you just earlier
73.
say
I know. I was.
727?
No, I did. I know.
73. Must be
No.
your accent then.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, well, why didn't he say that before when I was doing the introduction? That okay, never mind then. You're okay now.
But I
can move
was
on.
commuting. I'm living in Hamburg, but my base was in Frankfurt. I was commuting in the early days quite often with the 72, so it's a nice airplane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's me, and now I'm retired because there was COVID. You remember these?
What was that?
Yeah, and my company decided, and my company decided to get rid of the A380, and so they asked me to voluntarily leave, and I did that. So now I'm flying small airplanes again, like this one. I flew that today together with a student, and had a blast. Yes, that's it, and I'm back to the roots, so to say. And also occasionally I do the same what Dr. Steff does. I'm being a jumper dumper and throwing out people crazy exiting airplanes through a door. I don't know how you can do that. I wouldn't.
I was recalling a conversation that we had regarding the A380 retirement, and then that they asked you to retire early as well. But then, if I'm not mistaken, they decided, well, maybe we were a little bit too hasty with that decision, retiring the 380. We're going to go ahead and bring that thing back. But they didn't offer you your job back, did they?
No, they kicked out. Not they kicked out. The 86 A380 captain left the company, so it was basically half of it. And but together with 200 other most senior captains from the 74, from the 340, whatever, they all left. Most of them were trainers as well. So and the company was thinking about, shall we leave? Well, it was a question the company asked. Shall we all leave? And they let us go, and then they're struggling to get the operation back again. But it was handy that a lot of airplanes weren't delivered, especially also from Boeing. The 777X is not coming, and also the 350 is not coming at that rate. So that's why they pulled not only out the 380, they also pulled out the 340-600 captain. It's flying again, and I recall the episode.
Beautiful airplane.
Yeah, beautiful aircraft.
No wonder.
With the downstairs, I was listening to the last episode. I was wondering why you didn't recognize the downstairs toilets.
Well, we don't have them. Lufthansa was the only people I know of that put the toilets downstairs.
The story about this. Do I have time? I mean, I want to. The story about is that they wanted me a passenger room upstairs, and they not even put the toilet down there. The next also was the kitchen down there. I mean, the oven. So we had also one guy or a girl going down from the cabin crew and in the kitchen to prepare the food. And there was an elevator which brings it up, and then they distributed it along the cabin. So they had less galley in the cabin area. But it actually never worked out. The airplane with this configuration got the name Galeere, where the slaves are rowing. This is called.
Okay,
They called it at the end. This name, the company said nobody is allowed to say the word Galeere anymore. And they had to change the design because it didn't work out. Because what you do when after you have dinner on board, you go to the loo. Most people do, but at the same time they had to change all the carts and getting it up and down again and getting restoring all the baggage carts and everything. I mean the beverage carts and everything. So at the same time, everyone wanted to get the loo. They also had to configure the galley down there, and it was also jammed. And then was turbulence, and they could not really. It was a disaster. So I think they stuck with it for 2 years, and they rebuilt the aircraft. They reconfigured they put the galley up again because it didn't work out. It was a nice thought to get more passengers in, but it never worked.
The L1011, some of the models of the L1011 TriStar also had the ovens down below the passenger deck, and had 2 lifts on either side. And they also referred to that area in the same way that you were mentioning before.
Yeah.
But then you'd have to be careful about using that term.
Yeah.
But
I heard some stories about that galley. in that it used to get extremely hot down there. And I know this because one of my great friends was a Cathay Pacific pilot, and he flew the TriStar for many years. And he said the crew down there used to get so hot and sweaty that they actually used to take their uniforms off and do everything down there in their underwear. So that at the end of their shift, they could put their uniform back on. It wouldn't be all covered in sweat stains and smelly and horrible. So
I think that's a true story. I've not confirmed it myself, but that's what I had heard. But the thing that Lockheed did not do, though, was put any lavatories on that level. They were all on the regular level, so they didn't run into that problem that Lufthansa had.
Anyhow, so that's why all these old aircraft are coming back again. And the airplane you were telling the last story, I even had landings on it. So
wow!
The feedback from the sky was it was very noisy because it was 23-year-old airplane. Sorry to say, that's why it was noisy.
Yeah. Oh, well, brilliant.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing.
What shall I more tell? I mean, I'm so, I don't want to. It's getting
No,
to know
keep
us,
going.
What I'm doing the next week, I'm going to visit Munich and I'm going to visit Adele, the concert. I don't know if the famous British singer. So I'm going to heading over to Munich next weekend.
Nice.
Your friends? So she's invited you over?
Together with 70,000 other people in the stadium. Yes, she did.
Lots of good friends.
Yeah,
excellent. Lots of friends.
Paying lots of
well,
money,
hey,
I'm sure.
That's great. Yeah, you enjoy that concert.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
All right, very good.
No, I was going to say, Jeff, nothing's happened for me, so you can go on now.
Really? Nothing?
Yeah, I've done absolutely nothing.
Okay. All right.
No, nothing.
Well, let's.
We
let's
can do cover art if you want.
Good idea.
So this was APG 627, and we had suggestions like ice in drinks, not wings. I couldn't think about that one. Depressurizing under pressure. But the one that caught my imagination was Luxembourg, we're holding Dick. And
explain what that means for the context of that.
DIK is the abbreviation for the VOR beacon at the holding point of the Disky to arrival into Luxembourg. Or is it the departure? I'm not sure, absolutely certain, quite honestly. Sure. That plate's a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a holding point there around Diekirch. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Diekirch.
Say that again?
Diekirch.
Diekirch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of going on there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really.
So anyway, in order to give the picture of this, I managed to find a arrival plate, and I managed to very carefully isolate all the print, and that took me ages. I'm not kidding, because the middle of every A and every zero, you can't cut that out. You've got to do that sort of bit by bit. Got it all, found a map, stuck it on it, and it was about lined up. It was good, so that worked fine. It was an old Jep, so we had to put our logo in somewhere, and where the Jep wings went, that was a perfect spot for the Acme Airlines logo, not to scale.
That looks better than the Jeppesen logo.
It certainly does, doesn't it? It fits beautifully.
Yeah.
And what else did we... at the hold, there we go, at Dick, I had to make Dick a bit clearer so that people would know what Dick meant. And I also had to make that hold look a bit Dick-like. So...
we're saying D-I-K-like.
D-I-K-like. Sorry, I do apologize. D-I-K-like. So I put a second circular feature at the end of the hold so that it looked a bit more balanced. And then right at the tip, I put an aeroplane. So I thought that would be the perfect place for an aeroplane. which
I was
is
just thinking
coming
it was
out
a
of the
depiction
hold.
of an airplane and holding with a very, very strong wind.
Yeah. Well, it would be a perfect. If I was flying that hold, that's exactly what it would look like. And the other reason that Liz has put that particular expansion up is that we have got the show number there. It wasn't far off the eastings for the position in latitude and longitude of that hold. The eastings were just about 6 degrees 27.0 minutes, and that was that. So 6:27 was the show number. So that's it. There you go.
You can use it also for this show because 6 to 8 is also on there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the NDB or whatever, a little bit down the picture is also.
Ah, excellent. Well,
just in case you want to take the day by Disky. It's
take the day off and not have to do another one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that. 628's there too.
Oh well, I never. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, that was we're holding at Dick. We're holding. No, I was trying to be nicer than that. I wasn't going to say we're holding Dick, Liz.
Well, too late.
Too
You've
late.
said it several times now.
It's going to be.
By the way, as soon as I put it up on Instagram, I got all sorts of comments back saying I've been holding cock, KOK, and then someone said I have breast control. So for anyone that goes from the UK into France and you get handed over to breast, the first thing they say is call breast control. So you go, do I have to call breast control? Oh, this is so embarrassing. So there are lots of places like that all us, very prim and proper airline pilots giggle at every now and again, and that was one of them.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
We're like 10-year-olds.
But sorry, but I'm not so fluent in English. What does Dick mean? Can you explain that for me, please?
Yeah, it's short for the little antelope that you get in Africa called a dick.
Yeah.
Or it's a nickname for Richard.
Yeah, that's another Dick. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for asking, Stefan.
I only know the. Isn't it? Didn't play Dick Van Dyke in a Walt Disney movie? I mean, so it must be good.
Several.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been
Had his
Holding
own
Van
show
Dyke.
The Dick Van Dyke Show. Okay.
I like that show here. I like that show.
Yeah, I love the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah.
It's a great show.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just quickly
Jeff.
for me, let's see. Last time, I think we recorded, I was at Lake Lanier, a campground there, and I have since moved.
Which looks a bit like the Dick hold.
It does quite a bit like that, and now I'm sort of surrounded by some lake as well in my new campground at Allatoona Lake, but it's much hillier and a lot more densely forested, and so it's kind of hard to see the lake, especially from where I am. I don't have a site that's right on the lake, but it's still very nice. And the internet there, though, is not so nice, and so that's why I am recording the show at my choir director's home, Jane. I talk about her all the time, and I was asking if I could possibly use the choir room at the church to record the show, and then I could use my AT&T business hotspot. And she said, well, you could use the house here. We have like fiber internet. And I went, ooh, okay, that sounds good. And so that's why I'm here, because of that. I did. I did just to check it out and make sure that they weren't fibbing about or exaggerating about the internet speeds here. I decided to come last night. Actually, they invited me to come over for the inaugural pizza making. Chuck, Dr. Chuck, the husband here, the father, the patriarch, received a wood-burning pizza oven for Christmas, and just now finally getting around to trying the thing out. And their entire family was here, and they invited me because they said I'm kind of part of their family too now. And there are some pictures that we're showing, and we'll have in the show notes, of the Neapolitan style.
Is that before
pizza.
it went in or after it came out?
I'm not sure. That was probably not completely cooked, but it looks like it had already been in there for a bit.
Ah. Any burnt fingers? Any burnt
no,
pieces?
I don't think there was any burn injuries.
Oh,
at
wow.
all. Yeah.
Good Lord.
The thing
Well
got up
done.
to like close to 900 degrees, I think. It's pretty hot. Anyway, it was delicious. Absolutely delicious. So they can't get rid of me now. I'm hanging out here and trying to figure out. Although I think all the bedrooms are at capacity at this point, so I'll have to wait for a vacancy. In the meantime, I'll have to just stay in my wheelhouse and the Road Vessel studio, and so I've been doing a lot of singing. Yes, since I've been back, I've sang in a funeral on Tuesday, or was that Monday? Monday, I think. And then Wednesday, Thursday. What else did I do this week? Yeah, that was last week, though, wasn't it? Yeah, not this week. Anyway, yeah. Oh, we did. Did we? When did we record last? Was that like on a Tuesday? Oh. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of singing, and will continue to do so. And I think I did sing. I did sing in that funeral on Monday, and then we'll be doing the normal 4 masses over the weekend. Funeral tomorrow? Yes, you're right. There's another funeral tomorrow, Liz, that I'll be singing in. So anyway, not mine. No, hopefully not. All right.
How are you going to sing at your own funeral? You could do a tape, couldn't you?
I could do that.
Have you thought of that? That would be rather nice.
That would be kind of odd. Yeah.
Oh, come on. It'd be a great moment when your voice came ringing out over the loudspeakers. Everyone would be crying. You'd make them all cry. They'd be wincing. And yeah.
And I could maybe, I was thinking about being cremated, but maybe I shouldn't. I should have them involve my body and put some kind of a mechanical thing in, so that while I was singing, then the casket lid would come open and I'd pop up, like sit upright.
That would either that, or as they lower the coffin into the flames, you could start screaming, going ah!
It's hot.
And knocking from inside.
This is really starting to get quite morbid.
Yeah.
I'll cut this bit out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know why this podcast is so famous. Yes.
Yes. Infamous.
Okay. Before we move on, iHall Boxes has a comment. The Lady of Langen wanted us direct in bed. That's funny. Interesting.
I guess that's
Oh yeah, there's another one in the vicinity called.
Oh
KOK.
right, yes, indeed, yes.
Yep.
We're not going to talk about that anymore.
Coffee fun time. Here we go.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I'll take it.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup.
Oh yeah, the Coffee Fund. Your way to support the show financially if you have the desire and the resources to do so. A couple of different ways to do it. One is the Coffee Fund Classic method, the OG via PayPal. You can make a one-time or two-time or every now and then, or even a recurring donation via the Coffee Fund Classic method. No new donations since we last recorded. The other way is, oh, look at that sad puppy. That puppy is so sad that they didn't see any contributions coming in. Anyway, no new patrons either. We have something at patreon.com/airlinepilotguy. And this guy is here to tell us all about it right there. No, I'm sorry. Stefan, get out of here. What are you doing? Anyway, you can become a patron of the show via Patreon. We have several people who are doing that. And you can just specify a certain amount to contribute. Now, I will say there is something going on with Patreon and Apple and fees and that kind of thing. And there's some kind of a big change about to happen. Hopefully, I'll learn about it before you all do, and we'll figure it out together, see what we're going to do regarding that. So just kind of stay tuned. Don't freak out, please. So anyway, if you're interested in learning more about the Coffee Fund, please head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did, and we will too. All right, let's get on the feedback. Let's do it. Here we go. Let me play the bumper.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, let's start with this one from Lucas, and he said, we screwed up. We made an error, correction on episode 627, which was our last episode.
Oh, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have actually written to Lucas privately to apologize. I have eaten humble pie and given all my excuses, so we don't need to do this anymore.
Well, no, that's a little extreme. I think we mentioned that neither of us had flown the ATR, so, obviously we're not experts. But I'm glad that we do have experts out there in our community, and that's really the wonderful thing about the show is the fact that the community out there listening and have expertise where we don't, and they don't hesitate to let us know.
So let us know.
Get below that 50% level,
Yeah.
So this is hello APG crew. I'm Lucas Stangerlin, a listener from Brazil. Currently, I'm a A320 captain, but I flew ATRs
he's a
for
good
5
guy.
years. In his country. Regarding the latest ATR crash that you covered in the last show, you were talking about a tail strike and passengers complaining about the hot conditions inside Beaupass ATRs. Captain Nick suggested the tail strike might be related to some damage to the APU. However, ATRs don't have an APU. On the ground, the ATR uses an electrical source from a ground power unit or from engine number 2 running in hotel mode. Hotel mode is a unique ATR feature. On the ground, the pilots turn on the propeller brake, which keeps the propeller on the right engine from spinning, while using the engine generators to provide air and electrical power to the airplane. However, engine number 2, which is used for hotel mode, can only be used after loading cargo through the right rear door when that's finished. Okay, in short turnarounds, while the cargo loading is done simultaneously with passenger boarding, the time it takes to close the cargo door and start hotel mode is sufficient to heat the aircraft and create a lot of complaints from passengers and flight attendants, he puts in parentheses. Keep up the great work. Greetings from your Brazilian audience. I know we have a quite big audience in Brazil. And I was just going to say, hotel mode in all the airplanes that I've flown mean that there are no hotels for the crew to stay in, so you're just going to sleep on the airplane. That's hotel mode.
Yeah, that's probably true. Although it's very common in ships. I believe in sort of cruise liners, the things they have a hotel mode, which keeps all the ship's power going when they're you're floating around not using their engines. But I believe that's where it comes from, the phrase. But originally, and it's of course like a lot of things in aviation, we've adopted naval terms. Because everyone understands what they kind of mean. But that's very interesting. I do like that.
So it's some kind of APU basically. I mean, it's only the compressor part of the engine is running. The propeller is standing still. So it's used. You can call that an APU basically, huh? But it's the engine at the same time.
That's the same job. Yeah,
yeah.
That's the same job.
Yeah.
I mean, APU, auxiliary power unit, and this
Yeah.
is really not an auxiliary power unit, I guess, technically. Okay.
Yeah, we used to keep an engine running sometimes on the 340 because we were in a hot country, and without an APU, the cabin used to get so stinky hot. So we would often fire up an engine, usually the number 2, I think, for some reason, and run that while we were boarding and keep the airplane cool, because otherwise you just couldn't put passengers into a fuselage that was over 30 degrees centigrade. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right.
But I was also, when you mentioning how the ATR and the APU is mostly in the back, I was also putting my hand up like, what? How do you know? No, I even know that the ATR didn't have an APU. Sorry, Captain Nick.
Oh, well, you see, you're a worldly man.
Yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah, this is the last time you're on the show, man.
Yeah.
You just crossed the line right there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was going
I
to
don't
disrespect
mind.
you.
I thought Captain Nick is going. No, okay. Oh, now I am going. Okay.
No, you.
Oh, okay. So I got that mixed up.
You are.
No,
I don't mind
I'm
going.
glad that I'm here.
It's
even
nearly
only for one
bedtime.
time. Yeah.
3B.
Yeah, 3B. I'm trying to quickly find the video.
Yes, the extra video.
Why can't I find? Oh, maybe it was because it's in a different folder. Maybe. Hang on. Let me see if I can find it. Oh no, that's an ATR. Where did it go? What was it called?
Avio Bimota Busa Dinares M.
Oh, really?
Sapol.
Seriously?
Well, it's a YouTube video from DP News.
Say it again.
Well, Avio Bimota Busa Dinares M. Sapol.
I have one that starts with Avio, but it's about the ATR, the VOPAS.
Oh.
Sorry, folks. I'd set this up in...
Can you use a link to play it or not?
No.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do a search for it. A Russian title?
Well, it's because it's going so fast.
I think it was a Russian... Where the heck did I put that thing? I do have... Yeah, I can quickly just go ahead and download it, I guess.
I have already downloaded for you. If you need it, I would send it via message.
Well, that... Oh, no, I don't think he can. Can he play a video from... I'm not sure if a guest can play a video or not. Do you see on your...
you have it now on iMessage. I send it to you.
That's not going to help me.
Okay.
That doesn't help me at all.
No, it's a physical video, but anyhow.
I know, but that doesn't help me at all.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Maybe it does. Hang on. Stand by. And, okay. Let's see. I gotta, how do I open it? Okay.
You can drag it where you want to put it.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but thank you.
Sorry.
That's right. No. I know you're just trying to help.
He's 380.
You can't help it. You're being irritating. I'm just kidding. I need to save that somewhere so I can locate it via the file. So I need to know what the file structure is to find it through StreamYard. I can't just, it's not a matter of just playing it. Actually,
I have a button that says present, but it doesn't help you, huh?
Oh, okay. Click the button that says present. Does one of your choices share video?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can do this then.
Okay.
So present, and then video file, and find that video file, and then we should be able to see it on our...
I can see it.
Oh, yeah, we see it. Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's what I needed right there. Okay, so we're going to add it to the stage, and I think it's going to start playing right away, maybe. Yep, here we go.
Avio by motor, Pusa di Nares,
Okay.
etc.
So people watching an airplane landing with the nose wheel retracted. Both mains are down. It's a turbine.
Full reverse.
Look
What
at
is
this.
it, a twin otter or something?
No, it looks like a commander.
Oh my god, I don't believe this.
Was that amazing? The
Was
guy
that neat or what?
lands without the nose wheel, puts it down, on the nose, and then most people would just like land straight ahead and call it a day and shut the runway down and all that kind of stuff. This guy just uses some differential braking and turns it off to the left and off of the runway so they can use the runway. And yeah, we're going to watch it one more time. Here it comes in. It's what is it? An Aero Commander, like a turbine Aero Commander, a turbine commander, I think they call it. Aero Commander, Jet Commander, maybe. No, Jets. Never mind. That's right. So here it is. Data. And then let's just crank it over here.
And he's on the center line as well.
That's perfect. I mean, wow.
I'm surprised he didn't taxi to the gate.
Wasn't that something?
I'm listening. It's a Gulfstream 690D Turbo Commander. Yes, that's it.
Turbo Commander. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that as a Gulfstream. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like it when you say things that make me sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's a requirement for my host. You have to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Very good job.
The title of the item that was from Texas Charlie. He says, "Now that's damn good flying."
Yeah.
He said, "Howdy crew, if I've learned anything listening to APG, it's that you never stop flying the plane until you've come to a full stop.
Yeah.
I would say that this is some of the best flying till you've stopped that I've seen in a long time." And you know what? Texas Charlie, I agree.
Remind me, Jeff, what was the airplane that Bob Hoover used to do all his amazing stunts
I think
in?
it was some type of a Gulfstream or Rockwell Commander. I'm not sure. Maybe iHole Boxes or somebody in the live audience can correct me. But I don't think it was a turbine turboprop.
No, I think it was piston
version.
powered, but I think it was an
piston.
Aero Commander.
Yeah, Aero Commander, I think. Yep.
Amazing, hey? Amazing. Great airplanes, obviously.
And I assume that this guy knew that his props wouldn't strike the runway when the nose gear is retracted. I mean,
good point, Stefan.
He couldn't. I mean, he had make no effort to shut down the engines or whatever. He's using apparently reverse because of the sound, and maybe he's using even the reverse or the thrust to steer himself off the runway. Maybe not.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did sound like there might have been
great job.
differential thrust, probably differential braking. You don't need no nose wheel steering. You couldn't use it.
Well, it hasn't got a nose wheel, so it's a bit hard.
Very nice. It was probably a tail wheel
Excellent
guy.
job.
You know?
Next time you just retract the gear and put some grease under the nose and take off again, you know.
There you go. Okay. Got some audio from Down Under. Let's have a listen.
Hi APG crew, it's Greg, formerly from Sydney here. I say formerly because 13 and 15 months ago respectively, my wife and I both retired from our respective careers, sold our house in Sydney and moved to the warmer climes of Townsville in North Queensland. Jeff and Nick, both of you may have been to the Ville in your military days, Nick with the Hornets and Jeff with your transport flying. Townsville has a large military presence here, having the largest army base in Australia, as well as an Air Force base, which sees lots of transports and fighter jets in and out all the time. It is usually the centre point when exercises with other nations are run as well. During World War II, it was also the largest US naval base outside of Pearl Harbor and the US mainland, with the Battle of the Coral Sea happening almost on on Townsville's doorstep. It was also bombed 3 times by the Japanese. Now, as I sit here, it's currently middle of winter. It's 23 degrees Celsius, which is about 75 Fahrenheit. And as I said, it's the middle of winter, and I'm sitting here. I have a pair of shorts and a t-shirt on, and this is about as cold as it gets in winter, during the day anyway. It gets a little bit cooler at night. Anyway, the reason for my feedback: not driving 2 to 2.5 hours a day, I've fallen a bit behind in my listening to you guys. So I am, as I said, a few episodes behind. Now, I've just been listening to APG 618. And at the start, you guys were talking about the NATO names for the Russian aircraft. Captain Nick, that is, mentioned the names beginning with B for bombers, F for fighters, C for cargo aircraft, and H for helicopters. And that's pretty straightforward. But was unsure where the names themselves actually came from and how they were allocated. Many years ago, on the Airplane Geeks, David Vanderhoof did a story on this. Now, all I can remember about the story was that bombers or fighters with a single syllable name were propeller driven, and 2-syllable names were jet driven. So things like a bear were a prop plane, but a badger or something like that were, being 2 syllables, were jet propelled. Now, with the fighters, apparently there was also a way to determine if it was a single or multi-engine. I can't remember exactly how that went. Maybe someone could trawl through the back archives of the Airplane Geeks and find, or maybe Main Man Micah, if he's listening, may be able to come up with that. But I had a bit of a look. It was a long time ago that I heard, maybe somewhere in about episode 3 in the 300s or 400s, sometime like that. Currently there are over 800 episodes, so it was a while ago. Anyway, keep up the good work, and I shall try to keep up with the listening. There's Greg now from Townsville, out.
Thank you, Greg, for the audio feedback. It's always good to hear actual voices.
Next time, Greg, can you speak a bit louder so you can hide my sneezes?
Yeah, it was hard. It was kind of hard for me to hear what you were saying over the sneezing going on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I was like 5 feet from the microphone.
Well, it was still quite loud.
Yeah, my apologies, everybody.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah. We used to go up there a lot when I was in the Australian Air Force. You know, in fact, this was a picture I took on my first visit to Townsville. Towards the end of my conversion course onto the F-18 Hornet, we deployed up there, and you can see why, because on the belly of that Hornet there is a practice bomb carrier, that white looking device which they used to sling a bunch of bombs in, just little 25-pounders, but more importantly, when we'd flown around the area and seen the ranges and things, we used to load up with live 500-pound high explosive bombs and go and do live weapons training up there. And it was a great place. And it was one of my first times up into the northern half of Australia, and I just loved it. And I loved the city of Townsville, and driving around, because I was looking at all these houses, and so many of these houses were actually up on sort of stilts, so that the bottom of the house is 1 story up, and they're up on poles, and they parked their cars underneath the house, and they lived on what would be the first floor, and they had the windows sort of had shutters, and the windows were pulled open and the shutters were folded back and the walls kind of disappeared, and you get the beautiful sea breeze coming through, keep the whole house cool. It was just a lovely way to have a dwelling in this lovely warm climate, and I was just so taken with the place. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. Always enjoyed myself up there. People were lovely. The beer was cold, and that's really what you need. So that was perfect. And I went back there many times on my 3-year tour out there. But I've always got a soft spot for Townsville and, the place, trying to remember the name, Cordelia Island. We used to go drop our bombs and coming back we'd fly past Magnetic Island and all these local spots that we used to know about. It was a really super base to work from. It was where I learned to play golf with the cane toads. Probably best kept off this podcast, but there was, the locals there have to deal with this invasion of foreign toads that by any means they could. And I've told the story in my plain tale, so if you really want to find out what happened to some of the cane toads that came around the mess when we had our golfing gear out, that's all I'm going to say now.
Okay.
I don't know how to finish that.
Very good. Never made it to that location myself. The only base that I ever went to, well, I take that back. Went to Darwin. Oh, now that I'm thinking about it, I landed in, but they weren't. I don't think they were military bases. Maybe no, the Darwin one.
Darwin was half military, half civil.
Okay,
so it had a civil airport and then a military base on the side.
Okay, how about the one that starts with a B on the
Brisbane?
East Coast? Brisbane, yeah. I think that must have been
that was civil.
Civil, okay. And then, of course, the one that I'm thinking of that I've only been to, but now that obviously I'm wrong, is Richmond outside of Sydney, I believe.
Yeah, that's all military, yeah.
Okay. So never made it up to the northern, other than Darwin. Never made it to Townsville. I'm not even sure exactly.
Darwin's about as far north as you can get, and it's a fabulous city. I love Darwin. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never got a chance to do anything but, stop at the airport, get refueled, and do some more mission planning, and then leave. So,
yeah, that is a shame.
I can't tell anything. I was never in Australia. About
You've never been to Australia?
Only to New Zealand. And from my point, and from my point, it's like digging straight through the earth and pop out, and then you're at New Zealand. I mean, it's far away, is it?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
We used to have a route that went London to Hong Kong and then on to Sydney, and I tell you what, that was a killer. That one.
Yeah.
That was hard work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do another piece of audio feedback. What do you think? I'm not sure what knucklehead we received this from. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Captain Jeff. Hi, Dr. Steph. This is Stefan from Hamburg calling. It was a great pleasure meeting you in person, live and in color on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's enough of that.
Yeah.
Decided to go ahead and stop playing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was just building up to a big sneeze then.
Yeah.
Are you?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can, if you really want to play that, or I can ask my question manually if you wish.
Why don't we do it? Yeah. Why don't we do it live then?
Okay. I was sending this feedback first to compliment you, of meeting you live, of course, in Oshkosh. Yes. And I had a discussion lately with some friends about which airline is doing its takeoffs in what way. We were talking about who is deciding who is doing, in example, during the takeoff, the RTO or the rejected takeoff. And we were discussing where it's has his hands on the thrust levers during the takeoff. Is the captain putting his hands on the thrust levers? Of course, when he's flying, when it's his leg to perform, when he's a pilot flying, then he, of course, has his hands on the thrust levers. But what if the first officer is flying? If it's his duty to fly from A to B, does he has his hands on the thrust levers in performing the takeoff, and subsequently also the decision to and the performing of the RTO? In my company, the captain has the hands on the thrust levers, and he is doing the decision for an RTO, yes or no. Even though when the pilot flying is the first officer, he basically, his job on the ground is only, well, after the captain or the commander puts the airplane on the center line, he says, you have control, and then he puts the thrust in takeoff thrust, and off we go. But he keeps his hands on the throttle. Currently, a lot of airplanes, or not a lot of airlines does it this way. But I've heard that British Airways does it different. There, the first officer is always, when he's assigned pilot flying, he does everything on ground as well, even taxi in as well. He does the taxiing. He has his hands on the thrust levers. He does the takeoff. He does the landing, and he even, if it's possible for him, because of the docking and guide system, or if he has a marshaller, he does also the taxi in. I've heard from other airlines like EasyJet, where they do it the same. The first officer does also everything on the ground, but the captain has his hands on the thrust levers during the takeoff, because he is the one who decides about the takeoff and the RTO. And there are some minor difference even within companies, I think, within airlines. DHL, the cargo company, the yellow one, there depends on what aircraft you're flying. 300 is different than the 330. So that was a question what I've had. Maybe you can help me how it is in America, or with American Airlines. I've been told also in the business aviation, it's the same like in British Airways, if it's true, of course, that who's the pilot flying, he does everything. And if the captain is pilot flying, he does the taxi, takeoff, landing. And if the FO is flying, he does also the taxi out, taxi in, and the takeoff as well. Any thoughts?
I can tell you that at my former airline, as far as the rejected takeoff or the procedure, taking the runway, lining up, setting the power, the pilot, well, and taxiing the airplane on the ground also usually is the captain, because most of the fleets were only equipped with the steering device, the steering tiller on the captain's side. And I think it's an option when you order airplanes. I think the 777 and the 787, I believe you can have the steering tiller on both sides. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all the newer generation Airbuses have tillers on both sides.
Yes, they do.
Is that right?
Yes, they do. The 73 also has a tiller only on the captain's side, but it's also an option you can buy for the
other side.
Yeah.
So Delta always, when there was an option to add it to the other side, in my experience, that was never done. It was always just kept on the captain's side. But if it comes already equipped standard, like the Airbuses, the modern Airbuses, then obviously they didn't have them take it out. And I have seen. I've jump seated on an Airbus. I think it was a 320 or 321, where the first officer was his leg, and the captain gave him control of the airplane close to the end of the taxiway and making the 90-degree turn onto the runway. And so he did all that lineup procedure himself. But the actual setting of the power, if you're the pilot flying, if you're the first officer, you're the pilot flying, you set the power to as close as where as close as where the power should be, and then at some point before, in our case, 80 knots, or maybe it was 60. Now I'm kind of getting there's a little bit of fuzziness there, but at some point in the takeoff roll, the captain puts their hand on the throttles and doesn't say anything. It's just quite obvious when the captain is taking control of the throttles. The first officer is still steering with nose wheel steering, rudder control, and also has his hand on the yoke to make any corrections as far as like strong crosswinds and that kind of thing. But he or she will not have their hands on the throttles, and that's as you said, Captain Stefan, the reason for that is that the captain is the one that makes the decision to reject the takeoff, and that's the policy on all the fleets at at Delta Airlines. At least it was when I was flying there. Now, if the first officer or somebody else, qualified pilot in the cockpit, sees something that's important enough to make all the other people in the cockpit aware of it, they can state what is they're seeing, but they cannot say reject the takeoff. They can state something like engine rollback number 2 or engine fire. Obviously it would be obvious it was a fire because a fire bell would be ringing. But something like that. But the captain still is the one that makes the decision whether or not to continue the takeoff or to reject the takeoff. So that's the way it works at my former company.
And in my old outfit, Stefan, because we were Airbuses, now we transitioned from an all Boeing company to an Airbus mix. It took a little while for the SOPs to settle down, but we allow whoever's pilot flying does everything except control the throttles during the takeoff. That's the only thing they don't do, unless they're at a crosswind limits for them or whatever, because there were different crosswind limits. So the pilot flying sets the power, and then if it's the first officer, he relinquishes control of the throttles by taking his hands off, and the captain says, "My thrust levers," and takes hold of the thrust levers, and that's all he does. And his one job is to monitor the emergency warnings and the engines, etc. And if he decides to reject, he's the one that does it, and he shouts "stop." And at that command, the first officer now relinquishes control of the aircraft back to the captain, and he takes control of the aircraft during the rejection. As soon as you reach V1, the captain's hands come off the throttles, and the next person to put his hands on the throttles will be the pilot flying, which would be in this case the first officer. Other than that, during landing, taxiing, all that, parking, there are very few airfields nowadays that have this sort of parallax style of parking against the gate that requires the captain to do the last bit, because most you've got marshallers or you've got a more modern system. So the first officer is quite expected to take the aircraft right onto the gate.
Interesting. I think the reason why my company is not doing that is because the biggest chance or biggest risk we have during performing an accident is bumping in other airplanes. So that's why they say, okay, let's do it. Let's do the captain doing that. And the initial power setting, this one you telling that the first officers putting in the initial power for takeoff, it was the same with my company up till 84 or something. And there was an incident where the DC-10 took off, I think it was in New York, on a snowy runway with a set parking brake.
Oh, good Lord.
And they got airborne, and they retracted, after a while, whatever, they retracted the gear, and they had no knowledge about what the situation of the gear were, and they decided to fly to Frankfurt, and then they did an emergency landing with a foam and everything. But because of this, I don't know why, but then they decided the captain has to do the initial power also, because he's doing the parking brake release or whatever. So they put the responsible also over to the left seat.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, companies are allowed to vary SOPs, but it's interesting that they take responsibility to away from the manufacturer when they do that. So if their change in the SOP then subsequently causes an accident, the company that did that bears the responsibility. And when companies started to realize that, we have slowly got our way back to following exactly what the manufacturer's standard procedures were. And that's what we do.
I think, but the manufacturer always gives, I think they gave the airline the choice. There are some mandatory call-outs, for example, and recommended call-outs, and not airline does have to do the recommended part, I was told. But
you're probably right.
Yeah, and the reason I was told also the reason why the business jets making these strict, like where the first officer does everything, the separation of the procedures is because they fly very often as a pair together for a long, long time, so that they get the equal shares of every responsibilities. That's why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting subject.
Thanks for the answering my feedback.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You want to play it again?
Hang on. Liz is talking. Yeah, go ahead. So she's asking, how frequent are rejected takeoffs? Do they happen quite often in one's career? I would say not very frequently in my case, especially now. I'd say maybe in my experience, low speed aborts, like below 80 knots or 100 knots or whatever your cutoff is for low speed and high speed realm. Low speed probably more often than high speed realm. High speed aborts are pretty rare events in my experience. What would you say, Captain Nick?
The same, because the number of conditions that you're required to stop the airplane in the low speed situation, there are a lot of them. So basically, almost anything that happens, any ding, any worry, any slight abnormality, you're going to stop. Whereas once you reach the high speed case in Airbus over 80 knots, you're only going to stop for a very small handful of severe emergencies. And above V1, you're only going to stop if you can't fly, which is, pretty dramatic. Yeah, I did a couple, probably 2, 3 of low-speed aborts.
Yeah.
And they usually just required you to taxi around in a circle to get back to the beginning of the runway while you put whatever you forgot to put in the right place and then try again.
What? No, that doesn't.
Yeah. I had also a handful of those low speeds about, but not more. I had 15 diversions, but that's a different.
Oh my God! The diversion
you're
king.
the problem, Cap.
Plus the 6 I have as a passenger as well.
You can't count those.
Oh, heaven's sake. When you flew me out of Hamburg, I'm surprised we ended up back at Hamburg.
Yeah.
And we didn't end up diverting. Good Lord.
Okay. Yeah. So much about that. Now they are talking to each other and I can't hear a thing.
We're just going to wait for the noise around Jeff to dissipate, and then we're going to move to the plane tail, I think.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, I think I can do a quick introduction. It's that time of the show where we're going to play, yay, the old pilot's plane tales. And this week's installment is RAF Form 414, Volume 28. So take it away, old pilot.
The Old Pilot's Plane Tales, RAF Form 414, Volume 28. My logbook stories still abound, but I'm now on the last volume of my small collection of RAF Form 414s. Unbeknown to me at the time, my time in the Air Force was fast coming to a close. When I was offered this job on the Tornado, it was on the understanding that I would serve an additional year to amortize the cost of my training, and I was now coming up to the completion of my term of service. 19 years or age 38, whichever was longer. If I signed on again, it would be to the age of 55. What's more, I needed to make up my mind as the RAF wanted 18 months of notice of my decision. Would I stay or leave? I booked an interview with the wing commander, whose job it was to nurture my service career at RAF Innsworth, the headquarters of personnel and training, to have my tea leaves read. In fact, he used a mixture of chicken entrails, throwing bones and gazing into his crystal balls to tell me my fortune, and it wasn't all good. I was a highly qualified military pilot in whom the RAF had invested nearly 7 years of intense training. I was a valuable asset it didn't want to lose. I waited for the but. But I had put off promotion in order to be eligible for my exchange tour on the F-18 in Australia, and that left me a few years behind my peers. I'd done 5 flying tours without a break, and would need to do a ground job before being considered for staff college, which would leave me even further behind. If I remained in, I might expect to leave as possibly a group captain, or I could join the specialist aircrew branch. Aircrew of sufficient ability were offered the opportunity to remain flying as long as they were able. They were put onto a higher pay scale, but would forfeit the opportunity for further promotion. Many units had a few specialist aircrew guys kicking around, and I always thought of them as a little bit sad. With their glory days behind them, the young guns often treated them with scant respect, and as their skills grew tired and their experience became tarnished with age, they sometimes had little to offer but old war stories. I left Innsworth with a few months of extra grace before I made my decision, and a lot to think about, and I needed to talk to Jilly. Our life together had been entirely within the protection of the military family, and it was a secure place to be. Anything outside would be rife with new challenges to overcome, and whatever we did, we needed to tackle it together. Back on the squadron, I led a few of our boys over to Beauverchain in Belgium for a great weekend where we quaffed many of the world's nicest beers. I flew an instrument rating from the back seat with Keith Conradi, who was kind enough to award me a Master Green rating, and I played at tanking from a KC-135. My prejudice against the USAF's flying boom air-to-air refueling system might well stem from my sweaty efforts trying to stay in contact with the Heath Robinson conversion device that was hung on the end of the boom to allow probe and drogue aircraft to take fuel. It consisted of about 6 feet, a couple of meters, of hose which dangled from the boom end, looking for the world like a spent bull's pizzle. In flight, the boom was lowered and the hose and basket, sometimes a solid metal affair, flew along quite nicely. We had to make contact and then move forward and outboard a few feet so that the short hose became an S shape, which turned a pair of knuckle joint valves to allow fuel to flow. Our usual hoses trailed 20 or 30 feet behind the pod, so we had a fair amount of movement available, but this torture device needed a Blue Angel's level of accuracy to prevent it from ripping the tip of our probe off. In addition, if the tanker turned as they rolled on the bank, the boom would swing like a pendulum, giving us all palpitations and requiring much stick thrashing to stay in position. On another day, I ended up diverting to Edinburgh Airport when the boss blacked the airfield on landing, Cat 3ing his aircraft. In the way of explanation, our airfields had a colour code according to the weather. Blue was wide open, white, green, yellow 1, yellow 2, amber and red, which was pretty much fogged out. Black was when the airfield was closed, usually because of a crash, because Lucas was a master diversion airfield, so normally open 24/7. We also had an aircraft damage category, which went Cat 1 to Cat 5. Cat 5 was a write-off, whereas a Cat 3 was the worst that could be fixed on base, with perhaps the aid of a specialist team of engineers. Exercises came and went, including our most important, which put the entire station on a war footing, Tachyval. I'd been given the job of taking a deployment of our aircraft to a forward operating base over on a civilian airport at Prestwick. It was a pleasant couple of days away from the eyes of the Tachyval assessors and living in the Navy mess there instead of sleeping 60 to a room in the squadron's hardened accommodation back at base. On our return, the exercise was slowly coming to an end, and we'd gone MBC black. Whilst the exercise nuclear fallout came down from the sky, I sat on the filthy concrete floor of my hardened aircraft shelter, with my aircraft, my navigator, and a few line mechanics who would see the aircraft off. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and we had many more hours of this to suffer until an all clear was sounded and we could fly again. Wearing my full MBC kit and sweating into a respirator despite the cold air that pervaded our unheated reinforced concrete hangar, I pondered my life. I was 38 years old and had experienced just about everything I wanted to in the world of military flying. From now on, my life would be a repetition of what had come before, without the feeling of novelty to put a shine on it. I thought about what it would be like sitting behind a desk, shuffling paper, on a ground tour, and realized that I already knew what I wanted to do. The day after the exercise ended, I came back to work, having finally scrubbed the black rubber and charcoal smears off my skin, and typed a formal letter of resignation from the service, ending with the ancient phrase common to those of my time, "I have the honour to be, sir, your obedient servant, Squadron Leader N. Anderson, CFS Star, RAF." I put the letter in the post, and it started to dawn on me. I basically had a year to sort myself out, get qualified, and find a new career. If I thought I was working hard before, I was sorely mistaken. I was going to need an ATPL, an Air Transport Pilot's License, and there was no smooth path from the RAF to the civilian world. Indeed, while some airlines valued the extensive training that military pilots received, there were some that treated ex-military pilots with suspicion and hostility. The training that I needed would have to be accomplished in my spare time via a correspondence course with PPSC, the Professional Pilots Study Centre, which was favoured amongst the RAF pilots making the transition at that time. So, after work, even after a QRA scramble, which turned out to be a test of the F-3's operational Sidewinder missile firing capabilities down at the Aberporth missile ranges, I studied. What should have been a straightforward firing of a war round actually turned out to be a misfire when the AIM-9 Lima's motor failed to ignite and it sat stubbornly on the rail. The danger now was that it might be a slow burner and cook off any time. The last thing we needed was a live missile, warhead and all, leaping off to havoc some unsuspecting aircraft or just career into a house at Mach 2. We drifted around the firing range for as long as we could, and then declared an emergency and headed for RAF Valley, close by, staying over the ocean and using a minimum ground track, landing from a straight-in approach. ATC kept the myriad of Hawk trainers away from us, even though we'd turned off the seeker head cooling to stop it from guiding onto anything. After young Pirelli's arrival dual check, I studied. Not his real name, but one he earned after getting into a pilot-induced oscillation, demonstrating a swept-wing landing to me. Not often I had to take control on an arrival dual check, but we were in danger of kangarooing down the length of the entire runway and off the end, or snapping off the nose wheel. After a 4v6 against F-18s, I studied, even though we were entertaining the Canadian squadron commander and his station commander in our tiny Scottish 2-up, 2-down cottage for dinner that night. As a thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Campbell gave me a front seat ride in their two-sticker for old time's sake. It was truly wonderful to be back at an F-18. 1 month I didn't study was May 92, as we were back in Cyprus for our annual air-to-air gunnery camp. All my previous gunnery camps on Treble One, I'd been fortunate enough to become the squadron top gun with the highest overall score, and my lucky streak continued. The lowest that my nav and I scored was 51.1%, and the highest was 91.1%. On the 2 operational shoots, I got 69 and then 41 hits, giving me a score of 72.2, enough to win the Strike Command Air-to-Air Gunnery Trophy for operational shooting that year. When we got back from Cyprus, I had barely 9 months of service left, when 2 F-3 Tornadoes from the Leeming Wing had a mid-air collision, and despite both aircraft landing safely, albeit very badly damaged, the Air Officer commanding wanted a board of inquiry. Despite knowing that I was studying at every available moment, my boss thought I was the ideal chap to chair the inquiry. I had a couple of hours of notice to change and pack before presenting myself to be briefed by our station commander, and a service driver in a fast black limo sped me down to Yorkshire to the base where it happened. With the members of my board, a great group of technical and operational experts, we convened and then worked without a break for 28 days until our report was finalized, typed up, and bound. The accident had occurred when one formation attacked another at low level, and in the initial engagement 2 aircraft struck each other, the fin of one slicing open the belly of another. For various reasons, we found one crew to be negligent in a minor degree, and the other was put down to an operational hazard. This, we felt, was supported by the findings of several other boards on similar accidents. I don't think that the AOC liked the idea of his pilots accidentally flying into each other, regardless of the circumstances or the evidence, and changed my findings to a much more severe penalty, as I suppose was his right, but I was far from impressed. The weeks were drifting by, but I was about to get a little break from the black cloud I had lived and worked under for the past couple of years. My boss's tour of duty ended, and he left to become someone else's bête noire. The last thing he said to me was that he'd done me a favour by encouraging my departure from the RAF. Looking back, perhaps he was right, but then I didn't think it was his call to make. In his place came an old navigator friend and colleague, wee Stevie, a fine chap that I'd known since my earliest days in the Phantom. It was like a breath of fresh air. The first thing he did was to sit down with me and try to persuade me to change my mind about leaving the RAF. It was a lovely thing for him to do and gave me back much of my self-confidence and respect. Sadly, things had progressed too far, with too much water passing beneath the bridge, but I appreciated his belief in me. But the end was fast approaching, and I was about to make the biggest transition of my life. Some mighty changes were about to occur, but more of that in the next installment.
Love the music. And as always, very fascinating stories from your
Yes,
log.
very nice. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a bit poignant for me, this, because, I might well have stayed in and had a very fruitful career, but I felt I was, on the cusp of that happening or not. So it was a good decision to leave. Looking back, I opened up a completely new chapter in my aviation career, which, looking back, I really enjoyed.
So, had you stayed in, would you have still pursued civil aviation, airline aviation after you got, or is that not a thing?
Well, it depends on the airlines and what age they were willing to accept you. At the time, I was only 1 year from really from the maximum age that most airlines would have taken me. So basically 40. That was it. Most airlines had a bit of a cut-off at 40 and they wouldn't hire you. As it turned out, I got into the airline that I joined, Virgin, just under that age limit, but barely. So if I had stayed in, and I now know that people, airlines are short of pilots, and those age limits have more or less disappeared. I probably would have been fine if I stayed in, but I would have been not doing flying jobs. I would have been doing staff jobs, and that was something that I don't think I was ever cut out to do, quite honestly. Next one. Well, actually, I continued to fill out my flying in my old RAF logbook for quite a few years. So no, I'm afraid not. It's going to be just another volume until basically I retire. So I'm sorry about that. I did actually move to an electronic logbook for a while, one of which completely crashed, and I lost about 3 years of flying.
Wow.
Who's whistling?
It sounds like the ship is about to push off a dock or something. What's?
No, I got a. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
And your phone.
You were sending me some message, and it's my iMessage tone is bridge to captain. It's from the Star Trek song. That's why.
Yeah. So I was basically saying if you could push your microphone because we're getting you some breathing sounds. There.
I'm breathing.
Yeah.
Heavy breathing. Yes.
Heavy breathing.
Sounds like.
In the next volumes, you answering the question: are you were hired as a captain or as a F4 and everything? We will be answered that question. Is that correct?
Yes, you will.
Yes, okay.
But first of all, I've got to get a license, and that was actually quite a traumatic period for me, because I had to do it in very quick time, and it was. I found it quite difficult.
I can understand. I'm there are other flight instructors here in the audience as well, and I get to deal now with persons who are 40 and they want to make their pilot's license, and suddenly they have to, and it's only private pilot license, and they suddenly have to learn meteorology, physics, and all that crap you put in the in the license, and they are really fighting with that after 20 years being out of school and doing business, whatever, to learn that. So even for you I can imagine it must have been tough. I mean, it is.
It was, and what's more, it wasn't like I was being put in a stream and just being moved from one achievement to the next until I got my license. I was having to do this all off my own bat. So you've got to work it out for yourself. You've got to find a school. You've got to make sure it's going to give you the right information. It's got a good reputation. You've got to book yourself in for the exams, take the exams, pass the exams, etc., etc. So there's that for me was quite an eye opener. It was, and then of course, having leapt all those hurdles, there wasn't a job for love nor money.
No.
So yeah.
Yeah,
that's another story in itself.
Wow. Anyway.
Oh yeah, let's do some more feedback. We barely
let's do some more
scratched
feedback.
the.
I don't know if we'll go the full 3, but we can do some more for sure.
Cheers, Stefan.
Yeah, where's it?
We're drinking beer. Stefan and I are drinking beer.
I'm drinking water.
Oh, how sad.
It is.
I know which is better.
Oh.
What's that?
Enough drinking, she said. Get on with it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Number 5. All right, let's continue on with some more feedback. This from Dennis, and he says in reference to APG 624 and also 623 with the Southwest Airlines flight that departed from the wrong runway at the Portland Jetport. It reminds me of when Comair flight 5191 crashed on takeoff from Bluegrass Airport in Fayette County, Kentucky, Lexington Airport. I was working for Comair at the time at my home airport when the incident happened. As we found out later, that flight was doomed from the start. It started out with the flight crew boarding the wrong aircraft. Then they taxied on the wrong runway to a closed runway. As you've said before, it didn't seem that they had good situational awareness. Such an unfortunate incident that could have easily been prevented by just paying attention to their NOTAM information. I understand, as Captain Jeff and Captain Nick have previously stated, it might have been buried in the NOTAM, but that is a pretty egregious error. Thank you, Dennis. I need to say a few things about this accident at the Bluegrass, the Lexington Bluegrass. The thing that it was the way they had the runways arranged back then. If Liz, if you'll put that first one up, it was very confusing, even in daylight, when we were going to the end of runway 22 and its reciprocal. That was the main runway that the airlines used because the other one was much too short for operational reasons. And so it was very easy in these kind of situations where you can start your takeoff from kind of a common point. And you had to be very careful and do that, do a very strict cross-check of your heading system when you were lined up, pointed down the runway, because there were a couple of times where I could see accidentally lining up with the wrong runway. They have since changed that after this accident. They made it so that there's complete separation of the smaller GA runway from the air carrier longer runway. But I'm not so sure that the NOTAM was a factor, but not a significant factor in my belief. It was very early in the morning. There was only one air traffic controller in the tower. He was doing everything. Happened to not be looking out the window specifically at this Comair flight as it was taking the runway and beginning their takeoff roll on the wrong runway, runway 26. So I'm not so sure how significant that NOTAM was for this particular accident, but the thing with the Southwest flight departing Portland Jetport, it's not that they took off on the wrong runway. They just took off. They intended to take off on that runway, and they thought that they were taking off on that runway when it was actually open. So I think it's like comparing apples and oranges, I think. I mean, both of these incidents involved runways, and but I think that's about as close as you can get to both of these incidents, if that makes any sense. Anyway.
Yeah, I've got to agree, but I also have enormous sympathy with people who misread or miss NOTAM information, because for me in the long haul world, we only ever looked at it once every few days because that's as many trips as we did. You got airborne out of Heathrow, you flew, you had 2 days off, you didn't even think about climbing into an airplane until 4 days down the road. It's not like you were doing 4 legs in one day. So and picking up that paperwork and having to reread it and study it, etc., for different destinations and diversions, etc. And even in my situation, when I was flying just once and then not worrying about it for a few days, I had half an inch thick sheaf of double printed tiny print, both sides of NOTAMs that covered the entire route. And even though it was centered on your departure airfield and your arrival airfield and your diversions, they were the most important, they came up first, you still had to try and read page upon page of tiny print, all written in block lap capitals, so there was no differentiation between a dog had been seen running on the runway or there was an enormous pothole in the middle of the runway. So you go, wow, there's got to be a better way of presenting this information, because we have the potential of missing something vital, and of course, it's easily done.
I'm not meaning to argue against that. The point that
that's what NOTAMs are. They're just a bunch of garbage that nobody pays any attention to.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. No, that is correct. I mean, we still have a responsibility to try and take on board all the NOTAMs and spot the ones that really affect us, but they have to find a better way of presenting them so that they are differentiated between the ones that are absolutely vital for us and the ones that are just useful to know.
Did you ever work with electronic fightback or everything in your company?
Yeah.
The NOTAM presentation has gotten a little bit better. There are keywords marked already with color then. Runway is marked always red, or close is marked red. And of course, the pre-filtering by dispatch could also help. But there are something slowly moving that they are getting a little bit more recognizable. No?
Yeah, it's starting. I believe it was starting to come in when I left the industry.
Yeah.
But it still had a long way to go before it really worked. And a lot of that was done by the company. You work for a very efficient company. Other companies didn't put the same work power in the same effort into presenting their pilots with that information. They just relied on a generic categorization of NOTAMs, which wasn't nearly as good.
Did you use Lido?
I don't know.
I know BA
I use
does.
Vaseline usually when I needed it, but sorry.
Okay. I have another beer then, okay?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Well, what is it that you were asking that we used? I'm not sure what you said. Lido?
Lido is a company like Jeppesen. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Oh, no. I know BA does. Lido is a branch also of my company, and they do a lot of work also for other airlines as well. That's why.
In my time in Virgin, we went through 5 or 6 different suppliers of approach plates, NOTAM information. Every few years it would change when we found someone who could do it cheaper or better. There was obviously a drive towards, more improvements. But we switched so many times, I used to get completely confused.
That seems like it would be a safety thing if you constantly switching, right?
Yeah, because you had to completely relearn how to read all the plates. I mean, a Speedbird plate, BA, British Airways produced their own, was completely different from moving to Jeppeson's was just a nightmare. I had no idea where all the information that I was so used to finding was now kept. If you've grown up with Jeppesen and you've always used them, it's easy. But if you're suddenly halfway through your career switching to this completely chaotic information presentation system, you go, what? Where are you hiding that?
I went from Lido and now I'm using 4Flight, but 4Flight, if you don't have the Jeppesen subscription with it, which is quite expensive, I don't need it. I'm using all the government charts for IFR approaches, and every government has different charts, so it could be always worse, let me tell you.
Yes.
So
yes,
true.
I quite agree.
All right. Let's do this one from Ben. And in APG 623, I guess we were talking about fuel freeze
This would be
points.
interesting to ask Stefan what their company does. But
Okay,
you
with
better-
reference to APG 623, the discussion about how freeze points are affected by different fuel types on my aircraft, the A330, we will use minus 40 degrees centigrade or Celsius for 3 sectors following the initial Jet A uplift. Then on the 4th, we'll revert to minus 47 C if each top up has been Jet A. And then he included a graphic that has the instructions for how you operate using various fuel uploads and fuel types. Again, that was from Ben. And I don't know, looking at this, and since I didn't fly the A330, I'm thinking, I know a couple of gentlemen here who have flown heavy Airbuses, and they may be able to kind of tell us a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Stefan, because I've been out of the industry longer than you have.
This is a problem. I'm reading it. I'm sorry. I was in the meantime. I was getting out a cold soaked fuel procedure to look it up in my old OMB. But Fiat fuel for next use freeze fuel. Okay, this is. I'm just cross-reading it. That's because when you mix different fuel types, you use the lowest fuel freezing point this one has. That's what I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, there are different fuel types. In Europe, we use what's called Jet A1, but in the States they have only Jet A. Wasn't it like that? And Jet A fuel has a much higher fuel freezing point than the Jet A1 you use in Europe, which has minus 48 or something.
47, yeah.
47 something. So I think the limit we always was using was getting fuel. That's 47. Not getting more than 2 degrees close to the fuel freezing point. So I guess actually I must confess I haven't read this one thoroughly and thought through it because I was busy with something else.
Well, let me pick it up, Stefan, because the problem is that you can say fly from America, where your fuel freezes at minus 40, and go to Japan, where your fuel freezes perhaps 10 or even 12 degrees colder, because they have great fuel over there. And then you go to the UK and you take up Jet A1, where your fuel freeze point is 47. So now you've got a mix of 3 different fuels, because you've always got residual fuel in your tanks. What fuel freeze point do you use? And it is really important, because on long sectors where you might have an outside air temperature of, say, minus 70, despite the Airbus is clever, and Boeing's, I'm sure they do the similar thing, of trying to keep the fuel warm through cycling it through the fuel heat exchangers. You've got to know the exact point, because you will quite often reach that fuel freeze point. And if you're not allowed to stay there and let the fuel get colder, you've got to either speed up to create friction on the airframe, which keeps the tanks warmer, or you've got to descend to warmer air. And that can have quite a severe effect on your ability to complete your sector efficiently, or even get to your destination. So, for us, I was trying to remember what Virgin's rules were when they eventually acknowledged this as a problem, because we'd been blithely ignoring it for many years. I think they came up with a percentage. So if you had less than, I'm guessing, I'm trying to remember, 10%, say, of fuel, and you filled the tank with 90% of fuel of the new freeze point, you use the new freeze point. But there were factors that affected that. I was just curious to know what Lufty did, or what your airline, if you know what Lufty did, that would also be very good.
I can tell you exactly, but the procedure that we use the highest fuel point of if we mix fuel. That's the one I recall now from my brain, so to say. But in the meantime, I was looking up the fuel temperature low position on the A380, and it also refers to a minus 40 degrees Celsius fuel temperature. So they also go up to the highest fuel freezing point, so the normal Jet A you're using in the States as a reference.
Yeah, so you'd always err to the safest fuel freeze point.
Yeah.
That's a sensible option. But eventually, of course, you're going to dilute the bad fuel with the better fuel, and you don't have to do that anymore. So these people used 3 sectors. Well, for us, it wouldn't matter because we always had huge amounts of fuel. You know, we'd take on 100 tons and we'd land with 7 tons. So, you know, you very rarely had a situation where you were putting a significant factor, a significant proportion of your fuel had a bad fuel freeze point.
Yeah. Did you ever had to change altitude to cold fuel?
The Tokyo route was a classic for that. Because you used to get such cold temperatures over the Siberia and Russia.
Me too.
The fuel, you'd be really right on it. And of course, Airbus comes up with warnings, and it used to terrify people because if you hadn't seen it before, it would come up with all these actions you're supposed to take. And the first line was, if you've loaded Jet A, you had to do all these things. And if it said, if you loaded Jet A1, don't worry about it. And of course, in Japan, we loaded this fantastic fuel that had a very low freezing point that was even better than both of those. Yeah.
All right. I haul boxes in our live audiences is throw in some TS1.
Yeah, that 50. Sounds right. Yeah, that if I'm not mistaken, that was the sort of temperature of fuel freeze we were getting out of Japan. It was because of the problems of, you know, the trans-Siberian routes that people flying out of Japan used.
On the, I only had to change one time the route. Was on the A310. We had to descend to a lower altitude because the fuel, the main tank was getting below minus 43, and on the A380, it does an automatic fuel transfer. If it's approaching minus 37 on the outer tanks, it just simply let it flow in the inner tanks or in the mid tanks, and the wings are so thick, then you don't be bothered anymore. And if the temperature there, you just simply pump it around, and it's an automatic or a procedure which you initiate by pressing or selecting valves, and then it's getting recirculated and then warms up again. So actually, it's not a big, because it has such thick wings and has not a problem.
Yeah, we encountered the problem most on the very furthest wingtip tanks and in the trim tank in the tail. But of course, if you pump the trim tank forwards, that reduced your range because that trim tank's there for a reason. It reduces drag. And as soon as you pumped it forward, you're going to increase your fuel burn by 1.5% or something. It was an interesting thing to do in the cruise when these things pinged up. It wasn't like we were spending our whole time drinking coffee and chatting to the girls. Russian. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I recognized the temperature-ish, but I didn't know the name. So interesting. He goes to some interesting places, Mr. Boxes.
Yes, he does, indeed. All right, we're going to do number 9 from Tom Seagraves. He sent us some audio feedback, so let's have a listen.
Hello, APG crew. Tom from Columbia, Missouri, that is. A couple things. First, I want to thank Captain Nick, for jumping in and doing an interview with one of our meteorologists here a few weeks ago. You guys were kind enough to play that report from Nate Splater that he did on turbulence. And Nick, I apologize, he didn't mention you were an airline captain. That would have been helpful to know. Jeff, I know you have trouble with the media saying the right thing. I can tell you, if you see how the soup is made, you would understand it, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating. And that was a good example of Nate not knowing anything about aviation, not realizing that, mentioning that Captain Nick was a airline pilot for many years and not just an Air Force pilot would qualify him as being somebody that could really comment on turbulence. But, you know, it is what it is. And Nick, as you mentioned, Nate definitely had an agenda, which, you know, you didn't agree with his agenda. It is what it is. But thank you so much for being willing to jump in and do that interview with him. It was good to see you in my control room that morning. I will tell you that the job that these reporters do is a lot harder than you might think. And a good example is last year, I had a story idea for a Veterans Day piece, and I pitched it to the station manager, and he liked the idea. And I said, look, this has to do with someone that I knew personally, and I want to make sure this story's done right. And he said, well, then I think you should do it. And I said, well, I'm not a reporter. I work behind the scenes. And he goes, I think you should do it. And it came down to, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. So I did it. And it made me realize just how hard of a job it is to put together a report. And I had several weeks to do it, and these guys have to do it in one day. I still wish they'd get information correct sometimes. Captain Jeff, don't feel like you have to play this, but I am going to attach the report I did. I'm very proud of the work I was able to do with that. And I think you'll enjoy watching it, but don't feel like you have to share it on the show. Anyway, topic number 2. Captain Nick, I have a question for you. So me and one of my aviation geek friends were talking the other day about ETOPS. And the question that we were wondering, how does it change to go from a non-ETOPS airplane to an ETOPS airplane? So say you're crossing the Atlantic in an A340, obviously not ETOPS. And then you have to do the same trip in an A330. Now you are ETOPS. What changes for you as you cross the Atlantic or wherever it is you may be going? How does that flight differ from one plane to the other? What extra steps are there now that you're in an ETOPS operation? Do you fly a track further north to make sure you're closer to land? Do you have more restrictions on what tracks you can take? Things like that. I'd just be curious to know how it changes from one airplane to another. All right, guys, I appreciate it. As always, keep up the good work. Captain Jeff, hopefully I'll catch you someday on the road, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Absolutely. Always great to hear from you, Tom. And yeah, I'm sure that I'll be driving past Columbia, Missouri, many times in the future in the Road Vessel studio. And no need to apologize for reporters. That just gives us something to complain about on the show. It's fun. This is what we like to do.
And we love complaining.
And yeah, I know it's hard. It's a difficult job to do, and you have to, you don't have extensive knowledge or expert knowledge of every thing that you could possibly be reporting on. You have to be a quick read, and so we understand. But as I said, we just have fun, making fun of journalists when they talk about aviation because they get it so wrong, usually, most of the time. Anyway, and I did watch the videos. I tried to download them. They were like 45 minutes long-ish, and the campground internet that I had was just not strong enough, fast enough to do it in a timely manner. So what I'm going to do is this. I'll have links to the 2 reports that you did, which were excellent, by the way. Tom, you're a great reporter, a great interviewer, and really enjoyed the heck out of both of them. And so we'll have that in the show notes for the audience to take a listen. And now with the ETOPS discussion, I'm going to withdraw and let these two so-called experts tell us a little bit about the question about ETOPS.
Well, I tell you what, I'll give it a go, and Stefan can pick me up on my errors to keep us above that 50% mark. So, yeah, 4 engines. Yeah, you don't obviously have a problem with ETOPS. That's one of the reasons Virgin Atlantic bought 4-engine Airbuses, because they had no ETOPS background, and they wanted to continue to fly across the Atlantic and Pacific and wherever they wanted to go without restriction. So you just had the normal problems on a 4-engine airplane of just making sure that your en route diversions, the ones that you might want to use, were okay. But if they weren't, you didn't worry, because generally speaking, if you have a problem, you've got the capability of going a lot further with your remaining 3 power plants or whatever the issue is, and you can use a more distant diversion without any concern. Switching to ETOPS was new to almost everyone in the company, except those that had come from a previous airline that used it. So all of a sudden, there were a lot of issues we had to learn about. The majority of them were dealt with by our planning department, who knew the restrictions on the airframe, how much time we were allowed to be away from an en route diversion, and also knew the weather's forecasts and no times and all, etc. So they would plan you on an ETOPS route that kept you legal. And what's more, they would give you very nice maps with your decision points at various positions along your route, which we would program into the flight management system so we could see them come up on our map. And they would be the decision points between going back to a diversion or going on to a diversion, and keeping us basically legal. Once we were airborne, a lot of those rules kind of disappeared, because now it's down to the commander to take the best decision he can in the situation. And the sort of situation that would severely affect an ETOPS aircraft would be the loss of an engine, having to shut down an engine en route. But the company tried to keep us with a bit of spare fat all the time. So they would always assume that if you lost an engine and wanted to divert, you would go instantly down to lower levels. And they would also combine that with a pressurization loss, so that you could always go down to below 10,000 feet and then motor along to your diversion and still arrive with a good minimum fuel allowance. And from that point of view, as long as we didn't get a major route change, and that was always the nightmare, because you had these beautifully drawn maps with all these positions on, and of course when you got to go across the Atlantic or across the ocean you were covering, if you didn't fly the route you've got on the map, you've got to recalculate all those points yourself, which usually involved all sorts of jiggery-pokery with protractors and drawing lines and squiggles and coming up with new positions. But basically, we knew we had a reasonable amount of fat in the system. So most of that was dealt with pre-flight. And one of the problems with pre-flighting a big flight is you don't have a lot of time. And I hate to say it, there are times when I really wanted to study our options on an ETOPS route when the weathers were bad and our en route diversions were a bit dodgy, because that, if you lose one of those en route diversions, you're really stuck. You're left, in a period where you can't fulfill your ETOPS requirement. And for those who don't know, extended twin operations require you to be able to divert on one engine and still arrive at your destination within a time limit that's set depending on the capability of the aircraft and your airline, which is calculated by your certificating organization, the CAA and up, or EASA as it was then. So there was a lot more planning, and there was a lot more thought en route when the weathers weren't good. You know, you'd be trickling along and you'd say, right, we're going to be leaving our useful diversion behind us now, and the next diversion we're going to is, say, out in Iceland or somewhere in Greenland, and the weather there is dodgy, so we have to have a think about which will we commit to. If we have an engine failure, will we commit to that diversion? And you always had to be aware of when you were passing these go no go points, but once you'd done it a number of times, it did become sort of routine, a little more routine. But I never felt quite as comfortable as I did with 4 inches. Funny old thing. Who would want to go for over 2 hours below 10,000 feet across a dark, dirty ocean on only one engine with 300 people behind you? Trying to get to a diversion where the weather was a bit dodgy, and you didn't have a fully serviceable airplane, etc., etc. That would, not a nice situation to be in. What do you reckon, Stefan?
No, thank you.
Yeah, you explained it. You explained it very well. Still, you get sometimes, as I mentioned, you still have to get extra fuel for the ETOPS operation. If you calculate, dispatch is calculating that you need, when you being in a decompression situation plus an engine failure, that you might have to switch on the APU. You have to fill up extra APU fuel and all these little calculations showing up on the flight plan. I remember when we were flying on the A310 across the Atlantic. So all little points adding up. So you sometimes have to cater fuel for a situation which you hopefully don't. It's not going to show up. And also, I'd just like to mention that the ETOPS thing is something which the company has to earn, you can say. When you start out with you buy a brand new 330 or 787 or whatever for your airline, you cannot immediately go to, how long is now the ETOPS? Is it now 3 hours or
it's over 200 minutes, 240 or something.
I think 320. I think they are 320 minutes or something. If they are above 300, yes. You have to earn that. I mean, you have to go through a certain certification process, and you slowly add up the time you're ending up at the max possible time. It's not like I'm a new airline, I buy the airplanes, and now can fly ETOPS. And no, you have to earn your wings for that. I would like to mention that. And regarding extra fuel for engine loss or decompression, you flew over the Lima 888 with your A340, Captain Nick?
Lima 888? No,
yeah, to Hong Kong, over to Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Flew to Hong Kong many times.
Yeah, there sometimes you have to carry, even for a 4-engine aircraft, you have to carry... the captains or the crew like to carry extra fuel if there's a loss of decompression and an engine failure.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, for the certain diversion points, you're ending up also, because you're flying long time around in a decompression situation and everything, that you also need some extra fuel sometimes.
Yes, indeed. Those the terrain you used to fly over was very hostile and very high.
You have to
circumnavigate. If you lost an engine, you would have to descend, and you would often have to descend through escape routes on your way to your diversion, and that used to consume sometimes a lot of fuel, and as well as requiring very astute navigation skills to stop from flying into some mountains somewhere.
Yeah, and another thing I recall, we were flying with the 7-3, which is obviously not ETOPS certified, at least not the classic one I flew. We flew over to Reykjavik, so we flew this little short part across the Atlantic over to Iceland from England. And we stayed within the 60 minutes rule with our flight there. But, or 6 minutes away from any airport. But then I learned that according to the rules, it doesn't matter what kind of weather there it is for the 60-minute rules. There's an airport down there which has a runway. It counts as a diversion airport. And at least dispatch was telling that. And then we raised our hand and said, no, can you please plan me a little bit more to this side? Because on this airport, the weather is good, I can land. But it was not important for dispatch, for the 60 minutes, for the non-ETOPS flight.
Yeah. Yeah. Occasionally we did fly that blue spruce route, that non-ETOPS route across the Atlantic. When we had, for example, aircraft that had pressurization issues and that sort of thing. That was always a handy backup if you couldn't go straight, boom, across the middle.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Great discussion. Great questions, Tom. And again, I'd like to compliment you for your great reporting of those two subjects regarding World War II vets and such. So right now, we're wrapping it up, and we're going to point you to our website, airlinepilotguy.com, where you can find information about the crew and the community. We have a community calendar there. We have a APG library. Tiffany is our librarian.
The lovely Tiffany.
The lovely Tiffany. She is just amazing.
We think she's great.
Yeah. Plain Tales, we think they're great. A special page for that. Information about the coffee fund. Liz says, they're okay. The APG store, which has some merchandise on it. And again, one of these days, we're going to be updating that, I hope, in the future. And ways to contact us and more. So please check it out, airlinepilotguy.com. And we're also on the social media.
Yeah, we all love the social medias, don't we? Anyone who is a Facebooker, you can find us at facebook.com/airlinepilotguy, and that's all one word. If you're an ex-Twitter, and on X, it's at APG Crew. That's our handle. On the Instagrams, where we generally just post artwork, that sort of thing, it's instagram.com/APG Crew. And of course, if you want to see this absolute disaster that we have just recorded, you can see the whole thing from start to finish. It's 5.5 hours long, and it will be on youtube.com/airlinepilotguy.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a wreck for sure. But anyway, let's see if Hillel, can you tell us about Slack?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
That's all right. Come on over here. Tell us all about it, please.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks a lot, Hillel, and we really appreciate it.
Can you get me a roll of toilet paper?
I don't know where it is. It's not my house.
What's Hillel doing there? Doesn't he stay in your RV?
He is there. Hillel's always wherever
he's
I am.
cheeky.
So he is
He's
amazing.
a cheeky man.
Yeah. And we'd also like to thank our producer.
Hooray!
Thanks
Liz.
so much for all the hard work that you do behind the scenes.
You didn't lose it more than twice?
No, just a couple of times.
And
I did not say that about the Plain Tales. I said we're all great, is what I said.
well,
And,
50% accuracy then.
and she kept the swearing down to a minimum today, which
I
was
did.
very impressive. So
Yeah,
thank you very
well,
much for that,
only
Liz.
because Stefan's here and she's got a thing for
Exactly.
Stefan.
I do.
Yeah,
I love
and then
Stefan.
Stefan couldn't hear her anyway, so
Oh,
I don't know. Yeah.
You could hear me breathing, at least.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
so I guess, and I'd like to say that I got to spend a lot of time with Stefan at AirVenture, and that was a blast. Really loved hanging out with you and talking airplanes and other things. So that was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you were able to join us today, sir.
I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And anything else to say before we finally sign off?
Yeah, I want to thank Stefan for the wonderful way he hosted me when I visited Hamburg, and welcome him to the show. Brilliant. I hope you come on many more times.
Agree.
Oh, Nick, you should have said that.
You first have to discuss that. No. That's
just kidding. Yeah, it was great. And with that, we're going to end this episode number 628. Remember, if you want to see the show notes, look for airlinepilotguy.com/APG628 or just /628 if I get it set up properly. Anyway, with that, we're going to go ahead and say, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Auf
See you next-
Wiedersehen. Tschüss. Ciao.
See you next time.
I should have said Auf Wiedersehen. That would have been good.
Auf
Yeah.
Wiedersehen. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Dankeschön.
Well done, guys.
Thanks.
Das ist gut.
Das ist
Das
gut,
ist
ja.
gut, ja.
Ja.
Hat mir wirklich Spaß gemacht, hier zu sein. Jungs, ihr wart klasse und die Technik ist fantastisch, kann ich nur sagen.
Danke.
I
think you're
agree.
fantastic,
I
too.
couldn't agree
You
more.
don't know what I said.
No.
Not a clue.
Thank you, everybody in the chat room, for hanging in.
Yeah,
to
don't,
the-
Yeah, well
don't-
done.
Don't,
Well
don't
done.
close your window yet, Stefan.
No, I won't.
Do we want to solicit?
Yes,
show?
I have a couple, but I'm not really thrilled. Any title suggestions from the chat room? We're open to suggestion.
Oh, yes, please.
I'll tell you the
Because I
ones
didn't
I have,
like-
Nick, but they're pretty pathetic.
Oh, no. Come on,
I
there's gotta be
have
better
I
than that.
have the German invasion.
What, another one?
I have
Too soon.
I have brown stuff or blue stuff. You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. We
I
always
have-
revert to the poop thing.
Yeah, we love poop.
We do love poop.
Joyriding with a knife.
Oh.
And
Okay.
thanks to Captain Nick, I usually use Vaseline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, was it Lido? No, I use
Lido.
Vaseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Sorry.
He's having a good think about that one.
Yeah, he's thinking, pondering.
Oh, is that
What
a
is
show
Lido
title?
again?
Lido is the one like Jeppesen, but another version.
Oh.
Wasn't it?
How is that spelled?
Lido, I think.
Is that right,
LIDO,
Stefan?
yes, and LIDO in capital letters. Yeah.
Capital
It's,
letters, yeah.
It's it was. Yeah, it started out at Atlas.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Atlas was
Oh,
they were
Atlas.
initially Atlas, and then they got bought out, or the other way around.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, Lufthansa bought it. Atlas was a navigation system from Brussels Airways, Iberia, Air France, Lufthansa, and maybe even British Airways. And they got their own charts, so get a competition against Jeppesen or something. And they used color charts and everything. And then before it crumbled up and nobody was taking care about it, I think Lufthansa bought it and made Lido from it. So that's why the ground structure is Atlas. And so that's why many European countries using it.
Oh, High Hall Boxes has a suggestion here for you, Nick. High libido.
In your Speedo.
Libido in your Speedo.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for the
Yeah, good
suggestions,
job.
and thanks for all the
Slippery
support.
no terms.
Thank you, Liz.
I quite like that one.
We'll see you next time, everybody. Hang in there, Stefan.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you very much. I will stay.